Chapter 1049. The Grand Shaman of the Empress's tribe said so? Chu Luchen said lazily. Although he said it as if he was surprised, he didn't seem to care about it at all from his appearance and behavior. The Grand Shaman said that I would not be in danger on this trip, so my mother let me go. Otherwise, how could they plot against me so easily? If they want me to go and never come back, they have to see if I agree or not. Princess Yutao said with anger. She tilted her head and looked at Chu Luchen. She knew that he didn't believe her and felt a little unconvinced. The Grand Shaman of the Empress's tribe was not only from her tribe, but also from the Sioux country. He was born in the Empress's tribe. Now he was old and returned to the Empress's tribe, so he said that he was the Grand Shaman of the Empress's tribe. Prince Qin, you don't believe me? Could it be that Princess Yutao can tell me some credible things? Chu Luchen said in boredom. It seemed that he felt bored on the way, so he casually found something interesting to talk about. He was obviously trying to get her parents to talk. Princess Yutao became more and more unconvinced. The Great Shaman's status was so high that even her father didn't dare to go against the Great Shaman's will. If it wasn't for the Great Shaman, her mother's position as the Empress might not have been preserved. Just based on this point alone, Princess Yutao was deeply respected and trusted the Great Shaman. At this time, Chu Luchen had no time to doubt her. Your Highness, before my mother became the Empress, the Grand Shaman predicted that my mother would become the Empress of the Sioux country in the future and be extremely noble. Yes, the Empress of the Sioux country is so lucky, Chu Luchen said lazily, as if he was talking nonsense. Princess Yutao's eyes almost popped out. How could she not hear the indifference in Chu Luchen's words? She knew that he still didn't believe her. After stamping her feet hard, she lowered her voice and said, "There is a destined girl in the Dongtsang country now. She is destined to be the Empress, just like my mother." The Empress? Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows. Of course not. She is the Empress now. Everyone in the world knows that. Princess Yutao said hypocritically. After thinking for a while, she felt that this statement was not right. She tried to recall the specious words of the Grand Shaman and interpreted it in her own way. In fact, there is a new woman destined to be the Empress in the Dongtsang country. The previous two women who have been the Empress don't count. But I don't understand why there are 3 women with the Empress. Speaking of this, Princess Yutao looked Chu Luchen up and down several times. In the words of the Great Witch, she said that Prince Qin in front of her was extremely noble, but also told Princess Yutao to stay away from him. She said that Prince Qin was surrounded by blood, mountains of corpses and seas of blood, which made people unable to see through him and revealed that he was dangerous. He said that there were 2 paths behind Prince Qin. One was a bloody path, and the other had a chance of survival. But she didn't know which one was Prince Qin's path. This Prince Qin was cold-blooded and ruthless. He was a man who could kill and punish others at will. It was difficult for anyone in this world to enter his heart. In his eyes, everyone was a skeleton with a powdered face. In other words, they were the fates of a lonely star. However, when the Great Shaman heard that this Prince Qin had a wife, he only sighed and said that this Princess Qin also had a great background. He asked Princess Yutao to be on good terms with this Princess Qin. After that, Princess Yutao said nothing, but he just lowered his head and fell asleep. Thinking of this, Princess Yutao sighed. The Grand Shaman could even see that she had feelings for Prince Qin and warned her. She became more and more convinced of the Grand Shaman. Therefore, she hid her romantic feelings for Chu Luchen in her heart. 3 women with the fate of the phoenix living in the same generation? Chu Luchen said casually. He narrowed his eyes and said with a hint of sarcasm, "Is your Grand Shaman accurate? The Empress has the fate of the phoenix, and there are 2 more. Does it mean that there will be 2 empresses in the future? Or will there be 2 emperors?" These words were very rebellious, but he said it casually, as if he was talking about having no freedom after eating. Princess Yutao's heart beat fiercely. Chu Luchen dared to say it, but she dared not. She laughed and said, "Actually, I don't understand it. Maybe there is a deeper meaning." The Grand Shaman only said the surname of the woman with the fate of the phoenix. Princess Yutao couldn't go on. Suddenly, she couldn't remember what the Grand Shaman said before. She could only smile at Chu Luchen awkwardly and said, "I forgot. It should not be one of the top 100 surnames." The Sioux country had its own written language, but the nobles of the Sioux country were also practicing sinology. Princess Yu Tao was the princess of the Sioux country and had a noble status. Of course, she had learned Chinese characters and written Chinese characters since she was a child. It was just that Princess Yu Tao was a person who loved martial arts. She had no interest in reading and writing. She had only learned a little and could speak, write, and read. As for some special surnames, she could not remember them. She could only remember surnames such as Zhao Qian, Sun Li, Zhou Wu, Zheng Wan. Did your grand shaman say anything else you should pay attention to? Chu Luchen elegantly picked up the teacup, took a sip, and asked slowly. It was obvious that he didn't care about it. He didn't even know the surname of the woman with the fate of the phoenix. Princess Yu Tao blinked and suddenly lowered her voice and said, "Prince Chen, you really don't have any ideas?" "Princess Yu Tao, do you?" Chu Luchen said casually. "Of course I have ideas. I'm the eldest legitimate daughter of my father and have a noble status. I'm more qualified than the eldest son of a concubine. Moreover, the Grand Shaman also said that my hope is in the East. With the help of the East, I can successfully ascend to the throne. Isn't Dongsang country in the East? This time, they plotted against me, so it was actually my chance." Princess Yu Tao's hand slammed on the table so hard that the teacups on the table jumped up. She looked at Chu Luchen with fiery eyes and said, "Prince Chen, let's cooperate. Who didn't step on a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood to become an emperor?" She wanted to choose a powerful helper, and of course, she had to choose the most powerful one. Chu Luchen was one of them. At the moment, Princess Yu Tao had already put aside her young girl's desire and regarded herself as an overlord who wanted to ascend to the throne. Love was too far away from her. Moreover, she didn't see any desire in Prince Chen's eyes. She estimated that no matter how beautiful she was, in his eyes, she was just a beautiful skeleton. Why should she ask for a snub like Yu Yen? Such a man was not someone a woman could capture. She didn't know how beautiful Princess Chin in the capital city was. How could she be tempted by this devil? Princess Yu Tao was a woman, so she was very observant. With the warning of the Grand Shaman, she got rid of all kinds of romantic thoughts about Chu Luchen. Standing in the position of a bystander, Princess Yu Tao felt that she could see more clearly. When Chu Luchen was talking, he would sometimes smile and look elegant and handsome, but he usually didn't put much emotion into it. It seemed that it was just a performance. Only when he mentioned Princess Chin would there be a trace of tenderness in the bottom of his eyes. It was very faint, and it was rare. It could be seen that Prince Chin was a person who could control his expression very well. Princess Yu Tao was a woman, so she had a woman's intuition. She just felt that Prince Chin didn't agree with Princess Chin. Maybe he gave all his tenderness to Princess Chin, so that he was cold-blooded and heartless to others. Seeing that Chu Luchen was still silent, Princess Yu Tao straightened her back again and said with a serious face, "This time in Dongsang country, my sister will definitely cause trouble. She is not a woman who can stay quiet. If she goes against Princess Chin, I will definitely help her." Women had their own places to socialize, but it was not a place that men could intervene. But Chu Luchen finally gave in. "When will you let me see your Grand Shaman?" This Grand Shaman was quite interesting. If he had known this, he would have invited him to see him. He had seen this kind of person before. The abbot of Huaguang Temple was such a person. However, the abbot of Huaguang Temple was a cautious person. His words sounded specious, but he couldn't get a definite answer. He was not as good as this Grand Shaman of Sioux country. "There will be a chance in the future," Princess Yu Tao said with certainty. That was what the Grand Shaman said, so Princess Yu Tao certainly believed him. The rest of the journey was quite peaceful. Chu Luchen hurried along at will, and no one was stupid enough to go against his will. When he wanted to go on the road, he would go on the road, and when he wanted to rest, he would go on the road in the middle of the night. When he was in a bad mood, he would rest from noon to noon. Since Chu Qing came back from Sioux country, he had been very peaceful all the way. He stayed far away from Princess Yu Yen, as if they had nothing to do with each other. Princess Yu Yen was a beautiful woman. Although she was not as beautiful as Princess Yu Tao, she had her own gentleness, which made people have a good impression on her. Princess Yu Yan didn't care about Chu Qing, but appeared around Chu Luqian from time to time, which made the people accompanying them speculate. Of course, they guessed that this Princess Yu Yan had nothing to do with Chu Luqian. Qin Huaiyong was the busiest one. Although the things here had little to do with him, he was basically the one who maintained the journey all the way, so he was busier than anyone else in the team. They were busy here, but it was very peaceful. Prince Chen's mansion in the capital city couldn't be peaceful at this time. Many people had their eyes on Prince Chen's mansion. In the kitchen, fresh vegetables and meat were delivered early in the morning. They had to be fresh on the same day. The person who delivered the vegetables had been supplying the kitchen of Prince Chen's mansion and had been very careful for so many years. But in the past 2 days, the person who delivered the vegetables had changed. It was said that the previous person was sick and asked his nephew to take care of these things. The vegetables were delivered from the back door, and baskets of vegetables were sent in. When all the vegetables were delivered to the kitchen, a young man in his 20s, who was in short clothes, raised the paper in his hand and asked, "Where is the supervisor of the kitchen? Come here and check the goods and sign here." There were quite a lot of people in the kitchen, and they were all very busy. It was almost time to prepare breakfast. Many pots were opened and steaming hot. The people walking around were all busy with their own duties. "Hey, where is the supervisor of your kitchen? Come here and check the accounts. I still have something to do." Seeing that no one paid attention to him, the young man shook the paper in his hand and shouted, "Coming, coming." An old maid in her 50s shouted and came over. "What's the hurry? What's the hurry?" Chapter 1050. I don't want to be in a hurry, but I got up so early in the morning, and I've only finished half of the work, the young man said impatiently. "Hey, how can you talk like that?" The old maid in charge was unhappy. She put her hands on her hips and said, "The person who delivered vegetables in the past didn't talk like that." Okay, I'm not good at talking. I'm busy, and I'm not as good as my uncle. Okay? The young man's paper slid in the air twice, and he looked more and more impatient. "Come on, order the dishes and see if they are all good," the old maid in charge said loudly with a cold face. Several old maids and maids came over and poured out all the vegetables and meat in the basket, ready to count. "Hey, do you know how to do things?" The young man was unhappy. He pointed to the dishes that had been poured out and said loudly, "The dishes are all over the ground. No matter how good they are, they have been turned over by you. Don't say that I didn't give you good things later." Were these things in the original good? The old maid in charge was not happy. She reached out and picked up a handful of celery. She pointed to it and said, "This celery is not fresh. Look at the leaves. It must have been kept for 2 or 3 days. They are all gone." The young man snatched the celery from the old maid in charge and shouted, "Auntie, what's wrong with you? Is this celery not good? When you poured it out just now, you crushed a few branches. How can you talk like this? You are trying to blackmail me. You don't admit it?" The old maid in charge was really angry. She picked up another cabbage and gave it to the young man. "The leaves outside are all rotten, but they haven't been removed. How can they be fresh? How can they not be fresh? It is clear that they have just been picked up from the ground and sent here before the outer layer is peeled off. Look at them, they are fresh with dew dripping on them. How can they not be fresh?" There was indeed water dripping on them, but it was not dew at all. It was clearly water that had just been poured on them. Not only the old maid in charge was angry, but other people in the kitchen were also angry. How could they be so unreasonable? Did they really think that everyone was blind? This dish was clearly a few days ago, and most of it is rotten. This meat isn't good either. It's already smelly. How long has it been here? This fish is alive, but why is it so small? It looks half dead. It only moves a little when I touch it. It doesn't have much vitality. Is this chicken sick? Why is it so weak? It looks like it can't even stand properly. This duck is not good either. It's still having diarrhea. The people in the kitchen were all talking at once. The more the young man listened, the angrier he became. He suddenly threw the paper in his hand to the ground, stretched out his hand and pointed at the maids and old maids. Well, you did it on purpose, didn't you? But you can go to the head steward of your mansion for this matter. He was the one who agreed to my uncle's matter, and he was also the one who approved of it. He had been doing a good job before, but now you're bullying me because I'm a newbie, right? Do you know how to do business? Look at these things. Which one is fresh? The steward of our inner yard said that you should pick some fresh ones. We can't accept these stale ones. The old maid steward put her hands on her hips and pointed at the dishes sent today. The steward of your inner yard is here to make trouble, isn't he? Did he take the initiative to make trouble because the head steward doesn't care about this kind of trifle in the inner yard? Would I send the stale ones here? We've been sending the dishes for so long. We're all so old and famous. Would we do this kind of thing? Let's go to your head steward now and ask for an explanation. The young man was so angry that his face turned blue and he said angrily. It was not dawn yet to see the head steward at this time. The head steward would not get up. Wasn't it asking for a scolding? The people in the kitchen quieted down for a while. They looked at each other, but no one dared to really go to the head steward. Seeing that the people in the kitchen had weakened, the young man still refused to stop and shouted, let's go. But don't you dare to go? Now you know that you don't dare to go, but you bullied us just now. Now you're in the right. He picked up the paper thrown on the ground, waved it in front of the steward, and arrogantly shook it. Either sign or go to the head steward. Do as you see fit. Where did the troublemaker come from? Drive him away. A woman's calm voice suddenly came from behind the crowd. Miss Chinyue is here. It's Miss Chinyue. The crowd hurriedly retreated, and Chinyue walked over slowly. The young man didn't know Chinyue. He looked her up and down. Seeing that she was beautiful and wearing good clothes, she should be a well-known servant in this mansion. But a servant was a servant. The most powerful person in this mansion was naturally the head steward. What could a small servant girl do? Who's making trouble? Who's the troublemaker? I'm here to deliver the dishes. How did it become a troublemaker? The young man said disdainfully. He was really not afraid of making trouble. Or it could be said that he was here to make trouble, and it would be better if it was out of control. Take him out, and throw the dishes out too. Chinyue looked at the young man calmly and said lightly. She was the principal servant girl of Princess Chin. Nanny Yu had specially said that Chinyue was in charge of the kitchen affairs. No matter what she did, Princess Chin would take care of it, so she didn't have to be afraid. Hearing Chinyue's words, two sturdy old maids immediately came over and dragged the young man out. The kitchen staff had strong hands, so the young man couldn't be steady even if he wanted to. He could only step back and yell, "You're too much. It's the butler who asked me to send the dishes to your mansion. You don't allow me to." It was still early, so his shouting could be heard very far. Cover his mouth, Chinyue said. Some people couldn't stand it anymore. Hearing Chinyue's words, someone took a wet rag and covered the young man's mouth. The greasy and wet feeling almost made him vomit on the spot. Then a few coarse old women and maids carried the vegetable basket he had brought in and threw it outside along with the basket. If you still want to deliver vegetables, hurry up and pick some fresh ones. Otherwise, you don't have to deliver vegetables anymore. Chinyu stood at the back door and said coldly. The young man tore off the rag in his mouth, stared at Chinyu with bloodshot eyes, and roared, "If you have the ability, go talk to the head steward. The head steward has the final say on the matter of delivering the vegetables. If you don't have the ability, don't come here and take a look at yourself. How dare you use this kind of thing to deal with the head steward? Close the door." Chinyu ignored him and said to the old maid guarding the back door after entering. The old maid hurriedly answered and closed the door. No matter how loud the woman outside was, no one paid attention to her. Back to the kitchen, a kitchen maid, a housewife. The son looked at her, waiting for her to make a decision. "I have sent people to buy fresh ingredients. They will be here in a while. You can cook breakfast later. I will talk to Wang Fei. It doesn't matter even if it's a little late. As long as it's fresh. If it's not fresh, send it to the Fu. If Wang Fei uses it, no one can bear the responsibility." Chinyu knew what they were worried about and gave an order. Hearing that there would be fresh ingredients coming in a while, the people in the kitchen breathed a sigh of relief. The supervisor waved her hand and said, "Go do what you should do. Don't block here. It makes people worry." The others left in an uproar, but the supervisor didn't leave. She looked at Qin Yu and said hesitantly, "Miss Qin Yu, if the head steward asks, what should we do?" "It doesn't matter. The princess will deal with it," Qin Yu said calmly. The dishes were delivered very quickly. Xiao Wanru had already prepared it, so she didn't delay their breakfast. After breakfast, the head steward was invited into Xiao Wanru's courtyard. After entering the door, he bowed respectfully to Xiao Wanru. "Head steward, please sit down." Xiao Wanru stood up, bowed politely and said softly. As the head steward of the former empress, he deserved Xiao Wanru's bow. "What can I do for you, your highness?" The head steward hurriedly returned the bow, sat down and asked. When Princess Chen married into Prince Chen's mansion, he only saw her on the second day after she married. After that, he had no contact with her. When Prince Chen was here, the chief butler would ask Prince Chen to deal with all the affairs. When Prince Chen was not here, the chief butler would deal with them by himself and did not bother the princess. The head steward was originally a servant of the former empress. For Prince Chen and me, he is actually an elder. For so many years, the head steward has taken care of Prince Chen when he was outside. I'm here to thank the head steward on behalf of Prince Chen. Xiao Wanru bowed again. The head steward was so scared that he hurriedly turned aside and said, "Your Highness, this is my duty. How can I deserve your bow?" "Head steward, you're too polite. You have been protecting Prince Chen for so many years. Now that Prince Chen is not here, I'm afraid that you have to protect the whole mansion," Xiao Wanru said with a wry smile. She sat down in a chair aside and invited the head steward to take a seat. After serving tea, Yu Jie and Chu Lu stepped aside. The head steward's face changed and he asked, "Your Highness, what happened?" He basically kept an eye on everything inside and outside the mansion. When Prince Chen left, he repeatedly ordered him to take care of the whole mansion. Of course, the most important thing was Princess Chen. The head steward had watched Chu Luchen grow up, so he knew his character best. Besides, with Xiao Xuanzi's advice, how could he not understand the importance of Princess Chen to Prince Chen? "Head steward, to tell you the truth, someone is going to deal with our mansion," Xiao Wanru said softly. "Your Highness, what did you find?" "I've been keeping a close watch outside. Didn't I find anything unusual?" The head steward frowned. He thought that he had been keeping a close watch. Did he neglect anything? "It's not outside. It's in our mansion. Someone wants to make us alienate and then take action against Prince Chen's mansion." Xiao Wanru looked at the head steward and said bluntly. When the head steward entered the door just now, his attitude was respectful and his tone was kind, which made her feel half relieved. At least the head steward was not a person who preyed on his seniority, which made it much easier to deal with. Chapter 1051. Chief Butler, do you know who the prince will bring to the Su country this time? Xiao Wanru asked calmly. The chief butler's eyes flickered slightly, and he misunderstood her meaning. "Don't worry, Your Highness. The princess of the Su country will not marry the prince when she comes to the capital city. It has nothing to do with the prince." He thought that Xiao Wanru was jealous, so he hurriedly explained. "I know this, but others don't know it. There are also people who want to use this matter to probe the prince's background." Xiao Wanru said with a soft smile. The chief butler had met many people in the Imperial palace and had experienced the previous dynasty, so he was not ignorant. At this time, he was shocked by Xiao Wanru's words. After thinking carefully, he immediately stood up, bowed to Xiao Wanru, and said with sincere admiration, "Your Highness, I think too little." This bow was sincere and sincere. He had been respectful because of the prince, but now he saw Princess Chen, so he bowed sincerely because of Princess Chen. People like him, who had reached the end step by step in the Imperial palace, were very clever. He immediately heard the important point in Xiao Wanru's words, which he had ignored. "Chief Butler, you are too polite. Please sit down," Xiao Wanru said with a smile. The head butler sat down again. "Princess, this old servant has thought about the safety of the prince's mansion and asked people to pay close attention to the safety of the prince's mansion. I even specially sent more people to pay more attention to the people around princess. I am afraid that there is a problem with Princess's safety. To be honest, if Princess wants to go out during this time, this old servant will also come to persuade you. At present, the chief butler felt that Princess Chen was very reliable. No matter who wanted to harm Princess Chen in the mansion, it would be impossible. As for outside, during this period of time, before the prince returned to the mansion, the chief butler tried his best to prevent Princess Chen from going out. If Princess Chen really wanted to go out, he would also come to persuade her and even explain the current situation of Princess Chen so that Princess Chen could think about it carefully. He didn't expect that this little princess was so smart. She had already thought about what he thought, and she had already thought about what he didn't think about. On the contrary, he, who had experienced many hardships, didn't see through it. He couldn't help feeling ashamed and became more respectful to Xiao Wanru. No wonder Xiao Xuanzi repeatedly told her that this princess was an exquisite person. She originally thought that he had gone too far, but now it seemed that he had not gone too far and said too little. Thank you, head butler. Before Prince left, he repeatedly told me that I was young and inexperienced. If there was anything I should ask you, head butler. He must not let outsiders take advantage of the loophole and cause big misunderstandings or even alienation because of some small things, Xiao Wanru said. She was also very satisfied with this head butler. Wang Fei, is there a small matter in the food that has caused Wang Fei to worry? After thinking for a while, the chief butler immediately understood the meaning of Xiao Wanru's words and asked with a frown. At the same time, he increasingly felt that he had been negligent. He only paid attention to the safety outside but neglected the affairs in the mansion. In the past, there was no master in the inner court. As long as she dealt with the affairs in the mansion well, she could be regarded as guarding the whole mansion. As for Prince, she didn't need to worry about it. Prince was a sincere master and a precocious one. Outsiders only saw that she protected Prince when he grew up, but they didn't know that it was Prince who protected her as early as when Prince became a governor. At that time, she had made a lot of enemies in the palace, so she had better serve the Empress first. When she was the chief supervisor, it was not obvious. When she was in a disadvantageous position, many people secretly trampled on her. If it weren't for Prince who had been protecting her and preventing others from attacking her, her old bones would have withered long ago. Now she had gained both benefits and fame. Even if the Empress Dowager occasionally rewarded her in the palace, she always got a share. There is a disturbance in the kitchen. It is said that the person who delivered the vegetables was sick and asked his nephew to deliver the vegetables, but his nephew was not very good. The vegetables he delivered were all bad. He even went to the kitchen to make trouble, shouting that it was the job given by the head butler and asked the kitchen staff to talk to the head butler. Since the head butler was a sensible person, Xiao Wanru said bluntly, "The person who delivered the vegetables?" The head butler was stunned for a moment and didn't remember it for a moment. A servant behind the head butler reminded him, "Head butler, I have heard of the servant who delivered the vegetables. It seems that it has something to do with your time in the palace." Hearing the servant's words, the head butler finally remembered it and nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes, it has something to do with me." The person who delivered the vegetables was the nephew of a eunuch who served the late empress at that time. At that time, he died because of the late empress, so he asked me to take care of his descendants. After he left the palace, I asked him to help the kitchen deliver vegetables. It has been more than 10 years. This matter had happened so long ago that the head butler couldn't even remember it. There was actually such a thing. No wonder he came to the kitchen to deliver the vegetables. Xiao Wanru already knew in her heart, "Head butler, do you still remember this person's character?" "I remember that he is a good person. At that time, I saw that he was honest, so I asked him to deliver the vegetables to the kitchen. In the beginning, I would check on him by myself, and he was always good. Later, I let the kitchen check on him. After that, I haven't heard anyone report anything wrong. I think he is good." The head butler thought for a while and said, "Head butler, send someone to have a look. Maybe something has happened to this person." Xiao Wanru narrowed her watery eyes slightly and reminded him, "Since there was nothing wrong with this person, there must be something wrong with him if he fell ill for no reason. At present, the person who delivered the vegetables was obviously a troublemaker. I will check on it later." The head butler nodded, knowing that there might be an accident. The food that was delivered this morning is not good, so I asked Qingyu to drive them out. Calculating the time, it should be in front of the head steward now. Although I don't see the head steward often, I know that he is a clever man. Now I will entrust this matter to the head steward. I hope the head steward can find out who is behind this. Xiao Wanru said. The head butler was smart and respectful to her, so it was easy for him to talk about this matter. If it was someone who was biased against her and wanted to suppress her with his identity, it would be difficult to deal with this matter. The current situation was the best one. Your Highness, I know. The head butler understood tacitly. Head butler, if you need Qingyu later, you can also bring Qingyu over. Xiao Wanru said meaningfully with her watery eyes slightly raised and a gentle and kind smile. Sure enough, people who were not of the same family tended to be of the same family. The head butler felt that the pure and kind smile on the princess's face was very familiar, and it was exactly the same as the smile on his master's face. It was not pure and kind at all. It was obviously scheming against others. Thinking of his master who had a kind face but a black heart, the head butler's heart trembled. He suddenly felt that the delicate little princess in front of him was probably not a kind person. But it was good that she was not a kind person. If the members of the royal family were really kind, they would not know how they died. It was good that she was not a kind person. The head butler left the backyard with a smile and smiled all the way. He was in a good mood. He had been worried that the princess that the prince married was too young and ignorant. Now it seemed that the princess and the prince were really a match made in heaven. After exiting the drooping flower gate, the head butler's smile disappeared and his face darkened. He walked out with the manservant with a dignified expression. Halfway there, he saw a manservant running over with a head full of sweat. Head butler, you're here? Someone came to look for you just now. He's very anxious and has asked you several times. Who is it? The head butler frowned and asked. I heard that it is a chef who delivers food from the kitchen and asks you to make decisions for him. I don't know what is going on and I am confused. The servant trotted after him and reported. Where did he say I went before? Sure enough, the princess guessed correctly. The head butler was delighted, but he did not show it on his face. He strode forward and asked. It was the head butler's order. Of course, I did not tell him where you went. I only said that the head butler had not gotten up yet and went to bed late last night. The servant wiped the sweat on his head and said, when people came to look for the head butler, if the head butler was not available, he would always say that he had something to do, but he would not tell others the specific matters. This time, seeing that it was still early, he deliberately changed the reason. Okay, then let's go and have a look. The head butler nodded and followed the servant all the way out. After turning a few yards, he saw a young man in his 20s standing in front of the road at the intersection. He was pacing around in circles. When he saw the head steward coming out, his eyes immediately lit up. He hurriedly rushed over and knelt in front of the head steward. He kowtowed to the head steward 3 times and said, Head steward, I beg you to seek justice for me. After saying that, he cried with grievance. There were 2 baskets behind him, which were full of vegetables and meat. There was even a chicken that was moving vigorously, as if it wanted to shake off all the vegetables on it. It was really vigorous. There was also a fish, which was swaying on the surface of the vegetables. From time to time, it jumped up and swung its tail, making a loud sound. What's going on? The head butler stopped, looked at the situation with his hands behind his back and asked. I don't know what's going on. Today, when I delivered the vegetables, the people in the kitchen either criticized the chicken for being sick, or said that the fish was dying and the vegetables were not fresh. But these were obviously good. If you don't believe me, you can ask someone to have a look. If there is a trace of something wrong with these things, I will accept all the punishments. The young man wiped his tears and said, My uncle has been sick these days, so he asked me to help deliver the vegetables for a few days. But the people in the kitchen are bullying me, pointing at me and saying that this is not good, that is not good. I was so angry that I wanted to find the head butler to judge, but they were not willing to do so, so they found a girl called Miss Qingyue to punish me. They threw me out together with the basket, and the vegetables were all spoiled, and some some spoiled ones. I dare not bring them in to show the head butler, so I only asked the head butler to make a decision. As he said that, he bowed to the head butler heavily, and his wronged voice was lost in sorrow. Chapter 1052. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. The vegetables and meat in front of him were indeed very good. No matter how picky a person was, he couldn't say that the chicken was sick and the fish was dying. They were clearly excellent food. Looking at the young man in front of him, he also had a face full of grievance and anger. It was obvious that he had been bullied. That's right, he had been slapped in the face. Of course, the one slapped was the head butler's face. Not to mention that she was the descendant of an old acquaintance. The head butler's face darkened and he looked terrible. Did the kitchen really say that? Head butler, I really did say that. If what I said was false, then let me be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. The young man wiped away his tears and swore a venomous oath. This seemed to be true. Several servants in the outer yard couldn't help but get angry. They were all servants of the head butler, and they trusted the head butler in the past. How could they not be angry when they saw the kitchen treat the head butler's servants so coldly? Head butler, I'll go ask the steward in the kitchen. Butler, that chiniware is the princess's dowry. This is too presumptuous. Even when His Highness was still around, this kind of affairs in the outer court was managed by the chief steward. A few of the manservants said indignantly, one after another. The head butler waved his hand, and all the manservants immediately shut their mouths. Go and ask Chin Yu to come over, the butler ordered lightly. Yes, your servant will go now. A quick-witted manservant answered and ran inside. Thank you, head butler. Thank you, head butler. Actually, this is also my fault. If I had given it away at that time, this wouldn't have happened, the young man murmured as he kowtowed gratefully to the head butler. What is it? A manservant asked. This. The young man realized that he had misspoken. He looked around, feeling a little uneasy because there were so many people around. Bring him here, the butler said, turning around and walking to an empty courtyard on the side. Immediately, a manservant reminded the young people to keep up, while the others dispersed. The head butler did not enter the main room. He only sat down in front of the stone table in the courtyard. He looked at the young man who had followed him in with a deep gaze. He tapped his fingers on the stone table twice and said, Tell me, what other secrets are there? There were only the head butler and his 2 trusted servants in the courtyard. The young man looked around and suddenly took out a small brocade box from his bosom and handed it over. Head butler, take a look at this. A manservant took it and placed it on the stone table in front of the butler. The butler was not in a hurry to open it. Instead, he looked the young man up and down. This is what they asked you for in the backyard. Yes, in fact, it's my fault. When I came to deliver the vegetables, I was seen by someone. Today, when I came to deliver the vegetables again, someone asked me for this thing. I didn't give it to him, so that person sneered and left. He said that if I didn't give it to him, then don't think about delivering the vegetables properly. After that, when I delivered the vegetables to the kitchen, that happened. Who asked you for it? The head butler said calmly. I don't know. She looked very ordinary. She was just an ordinary old maid. I didn't know if she was from the mansion. At that time I was still suspicious. But I accidentally dropped it when I was delivering the vegetables. At that time I saw people from the mansion, and they even threatened me, not allowing me to deliver the vegetables properly. The young man thought about it and smiled bitterly. In fact, I didn't care about it before. Maybe it had nothing to do with the mansion, and I was worried. So I kept this thing in my bosom. I didn't think that someone really wanted this thing from me and framed me. The young man felt more and more wronged. The head butler did not ask any more questions. His eyes fell on the brocade box that looked very old. This kind of brocade box was rarely seen in the outside world, but it was not rare in the palace. It could even be said to be very common. Now that it had been stained with the passage of time, it looked a lot older. There was even a lock hanging on the corner, which was a bit rusty. What is this? The head butler asked in a deep voice. I don't know either. It was given to me by my uncle. He said that it was passed down from my ancestors. My uncle was seriously ill before, so he gave it to me. I happened to take it with me that day, but it was seen by people in the mansion. I didn't know what was in it. I wanted to go back and have a look, but my uncle said that I was not allowed to see it. As the young man spoke, he took out a key from his bosom and handed it over respectfully. There was a brocade box and a lock. If it weren't for Xiao Wanru, the head butler would definitely open it at this time to see what was going on and ask about it. However, at this time, he did not open it rashly. He just looked at it casually, weighed it in his hand, and looked at the lock on it. It seemed that the lock had not been opened for many years, and the embroidery had become lumps. If he opened the lock, the rust below would definitely be damaged. The lock should not have been opened for many years. Do you mean that someone in the mansion recognized this brocade box and thought that there was something good in it, so he wanted to get it from you? The head butler asked. I don't know. In fact, if it weren't for my uncle's repeated reminders, it would be okay to give it away. The young man scratched his scalp and said uneasily, looking very frightened and at a loss. My uncle also said that if something happened, he asked me to come to you and said that the head butler would definitely protect me. The head butler was a sentimental person. Let's call it a day. Qingyue is the princess's maid. You can come to deliver vegetables as usual in the future. I've also sent someone to the kitchen. The head butler said. Thank you, head butler. Thank you, head butler. Fortunately, you are here. Otherwise, I don't know where to go to plead for you. It turns out that it's the princess. It turns out that it's the princess's maid. The young man was grateful and panicked. Anyone who had offended the princess would feel panicked. But now that he had said these words, coupled with what he had said before, it was very likely that people would have a different kind of consideration. Besides the head butler, the princess was the only one who could be omnipotent in the mansion and could also mobilize the people in the kitchen. Since it was not the head butler's order, it must be the princess's idea. The head butler's eyes fell on the brocade box and he began to think. The young man did not dare to speak and quietly accompanied the head butler. Not long after, Qingyue came with a servant. After entering the door, she bowed to the head butler and said, Qingyue greets the head butler. Are you Qingyue? The head butler looked at Qingyue up and down. He was not familiar with the servant girls in the inner yard of the princess, and Qingyue rarely went out of the inner yard. I am Qingyue, Qingyue said naturally. Have you seen this person before? The head butler pointed at the young man who delivered the vegetables. Qingyue turned her head to look at him and nodded. Qingyue has seen him before. He came to deliver vegetables to the head butler. Damn it, not only did the food he delivered was not good, but he also quarreled with the people in the kitchen. His attitude was arrogant and domineering. Qingyue asked someone to throw his vegetables out and asked him to prepare new vegetables. Otherwise, he is not allowed to deliver vegetables in the future. Do you know that it is also the prince's idea for him to deliver vegetables here? The head butler said with a displeased expression. Qingyue doesn't know. Qingyue only knows that his vegetables are not good. I can't let the master of the mansion eat these bad dishes and hurt her body. Qingyue answered. Her calm and indifferent attitude angered the head butler. He slammed the table heavily and said sternly, She is just a little servant girl. It's better not to interfere in some things. Guards, take her away and give her 10 strokes of the rod. Then send her back to the inner yard. Head butler, Her Highness also knows about this. Seeing that 2 servants came over and really wanted to take her away, Qingyue became anxious and said hurriedly. It really is the princess. The young man who delivered the vegetables looked shocked. Even if she is the princess, when His Highness is not in the mansion, she still has to discuss it with me. You are just a little servant girl. How dare you casually interfere in the affairs of the prince's mansion by relying on the princess's power? The head butler became more and more annoyed and scolded. The 2 servants dragged Qingyue down the stairs, one on each side. Qingyue shouted anxiously, Head butler, I am the servant girl of the princess. Of course, the princess will punish me. You are just a steward of the outer yard. You can't interfere with the affairs of the inner yard. In the end, his voice was blocked. He must have been gagged. Head butler, this is really related to the princess. How about, give this box to the princess? The young man who delivered the vegetables knelt down in panic and begged. This matter was about to get out of hand. He was just a vegetable delivery man. Even if he had been holding back his anger and made a scene in front of the head butler, he didn't dare to make a scene at this time. It was the princess who was involved, not other people in the mansion. He was just a small vegetable delivery man, and he had to obey others. How dare he really go against the princess? Does the princess want this box? The head butler's eyes became gloomy, and there was a trace of fierceness at the bottom of his eyes. As a person who had been the head butler in the palace, his aura was naturally different from that of ordinary stewards. I don't know. It may not be the princess. It may be the princess who wants it on behalf of her elders, or it may be the princess. The young man who delivered the vegetables stammered and couldn't go on. He just looked at the head butler and begged, "Head butler, please give the box to the princess. Please." He seemed to be frightened and didn't dare to make trouble again. The head butler sneered in his heart. This guy was good at acting. If he didn't mention the princess and the princess's elders from time to time, he would be more like the princess. If it weren't for the fact that he had talked to the princess before, he would have fallen into the trap. He was old. He was really old. He had lived a peaceful life in Prince Chen's mansion for so many years and even lost his vigilance. That was why he almost let others take advantage of him. These people referred not only to the princess, but also to and great elder princess. If such an old box had something to do with the princess, it would be better to say that it had something to do with the princess's elders. Among the princess's elders, only and great elder princess could easily have something to do with the palace. This was a series of traps. Starting from the smallest thing, it would make people unconsciously investigate it. Leading him by the nose? The head butler's eyes fell on the brocade box. This brocade box was a little similar to the one in his memory. Chapter 1053. The brocade box in his memory was a box that couldn't be seen by others. The chief butler's heart skipped a beat, and his horrified eyes fell on a very small gap in the corner of the brocade box. His eyes suddenly froze. It was the brocade box that the former empress had lost. It was indeed the brocade box. The former empress's warning seemed to be ringing in his ears when she lost the box. Don't open that brocade box. Even if you get it, don't open it. If you open it and the emperor knows, you will die. This brocade box had disappeared from the former empress's palace. After that, the former empress called him over and warned him carefully with a pale face. She told him that even if he saw this box in the future, he should pretend that he didn't see it and must not open it. The emperor would not be willing to let others know what was inside. If someone knew and opened it without permission, he would die. The chief butler's forehead began to sweat. It turned out that their target was actually him. If the princess hadn't reminded him, he would have forgotten such an old thing. If he opened this brocade box now, everything before was an illusion, and what was happening now was the real thing. Not only him, but also the princess might send it to her. The princess didn't know what had happened in the past. If it was sent to her, she would definitely open it, and even the princess would be implicated. At the thought of this possibility, the chief butler's back was soaked with cold sweat. The entire Prince Chen's mansion would almost be implicated. "Chief butler, the imperial guards from the palace are here." A servant ran in, followed by several imperial guards. They were the emperor's personal guards, and even the empress couldn't order them. His silver armor gleamed and his gaze was sharp. As soon as the commander of the imperial guards entered the room, his gaze fell on the brocade box on the table. With a wave of his hand, several imperial guards immediately surrounded the chief butler. "Your Excellency, what can I do for you in Prince Chen's mansion?" The chief butler composed himself, hurriedly stood up, and asked with a smile. "Where did this brocade box come from?" The leader of the imperial guards pointed at the brocade box and said, "He sent it." The chief butler pointed at the young man who delivered the vegetables and said, but didn't say the details. "Did you open it?" The leader of the imperial guards stared coldly at the head butler. His hand was on the scabbard of his sword, and there was a faint murderous aura. "I haven't opened it yet." I just feel that it's very strange for this person to give me such an embroidered box. This item seems to be something from the palace, so I don't dare to casually open it, the head butler said calmly. Although his eyes were calm, one could see that he was very puzzled. The leader of the Imperial Guards carefully looked at the chief butler from head to toe and did not find anything unusual about him. It seemed that he had indeed received a somewhat suspicious brocade box, so he was not in a hurry to open it. He was a cautious person. It was said that the chief butler of Princess Chen was the chief butler of the late Empress. He was indeed different from ordinary people. He was so cautious. No wonder he could work in Prince Chen's mansion. The leader of the Imperial Guards turned his gaze to the young man who delivered the vegetables. Did you send this brocade box? It's from me. The young man who delivered the vegetables also felt that something was wrong and stuttered. Where did you come from? The leader of the Imperial Guards asked coldly. It's passed down from my ancestors. My ancestors served the late Empress, little eunuch. The young man who delivered the vegetables took a step back in panic. He looked around and his eyes fell on the head butler with a pleading look. Didn't you see it passed down from my ancestors? The leader of the Imperial Guards asked again as if he did not see his panicked eyes. No, I heard that my ancestors mean, don't allow future generations to see it. Seeing that the head butler also did not say a word, the young man who delivered the vegetables became more and more panicked. How could he finish his words? My ancestors mean? Come on, take him away. The leader of the Imperial Guards waved his hand. Immediately 2 Imperial Guards came over, one on the left and one on the right, pulling the young man who delivered the vegetables away. Your Excellency. The young man who delivered the vegetables was anxious and immediately wanted to plead for mercy. He was still puzzled. Why did such a thing happen? That person had clearly promised him that as long as he did as he said, he would be rewarded heavily in the future. What was the matter with this disaster now? The 2 slaps made him spit blood from the corners of his eyes, blacked out, and unable to speak. Then, in a daze, he was dragged out like a dead dog. The courtyard became quiet. The leader of the Imperial Guards took a few steps forward and took the brocade box in his hand. After looking at it carefully for a few times, the look on his face relaxed. It could be seen that this rust mark had not been opened for more than 10 years. Head butler, I'm sorry. I came in a hurry and disturbed you. His Majesty heard that there were remnants of the previous dynasty who secretly wanted to murder Princess Chen when Prince Chen was not here. His Majesty specially asked me to come here. If I disturbed you, please forgive me. The leader of the Imperial Guards showed a polite smile on his face. Your Excellency, you're too polite. Since it is the remnants of the previous dynasty, we should catch them. Our prince is not here, so the safety of Princess is in the hands of us servants. If anything happens to Princess, we can't absolve ourselves of the guilt even if we die 10,000 times. The security in the mansion is indeed a little weak. Since Your Excellency is here, please check it out. The head butler took a step back in order to advance. He took a step back, waved his hand behind him, and said with a smile, no matter who did this to Prince Chen's mansion today, it would not be easy to investigate. He originally thought that it was the one who sent the spoils, but now it seemed that this spoils was just a useless pawn. At this time, he was casually abandoned by others. There was nothing better than letting others check it out generously to prove his innocence. Prince Chen is not at home, and now there is only Princess Chen alone. It is not convenient for us to check it out. The leader of the Imperial Guards hesitated. If it was another prince's mansion, he might really check it out. But now it was Prince Chen's mansion, and Prince Chen was the most favored in the eyes of the emperor. If he came back and knew about this in the future, he was afraid that he would not be kind to him. Your Excellency, since you are here, please check it out. If you don't check it out, we will not be at ease, the head butler said earnestly. This, Your Excellency, please check it out. If you find out who is against Prince Chen's mansion, you can let us make preparations first. Now our princess is alone in the mansion, and it is really not safe, the head butler said again. Seeing that he repeatedly asked him, the leader of the Imperial Guards was a little tempted. If he really checked it out, it would naturally be the best. Then, the leader of the Imperial Guards was about to agree, but he saw another Imperial Guard pull his sleeve. The leader of the Imperial Guards immediately came to his senses and hurriedly shook his hand and said, "Since it has nothing to do with your Prince Chen's mansion, then forget it. Arrange your own people in the mansion to protect Princess Chen. We can't let anything happen to Princess Chen." Their so-called remaining evil of the previous dynasty was actually an excuse, and the purpose was this brocade box. Someone reported that he saw a person take the brocade box to Princess Chen, and it was the brocade box that the former empress had lost more than 10 years ago. The emperor was furious, so he sent someone here and told the leader of the Imperial Guards that if anyone saw it, he would kill them. If it was Princess Chen who saw it, he would also ask someone to keep Princess Chen under surveillance and wait for the emperor's new instructions. If they really searched Prince Chen's mansion now, when Prince Chen came back, he would definitely not stop. This master looked weak, but in fact he was cruel and merciless. The people in the Imperial Guards had suffered a lot from Prince Chen. When they entered Prince Chen's mansion just now, several of them couldn't help but think that it was fortunate that Prince Chen was not here. Otherwise, none of them who rushed into Prince Chen's mansion would have a good ending. The matter had been settled, and no one had opened the brocade box, so there would be no conflict with Prince Chen's mansion. That was the best result. How could there be more problems? It would be best if nothing happened to him. After saying that, the leader of the Imperial Guards left with the brocade box. The head butlers saw them off from behind. When they reached the main gate, he realized that there were more than just the few Imperial Guards that he had seen. There was another group of people waiting outside. Every one of them had a fierce look in their eyes, which was not something ordinary guards could compare to. The Imperial Guards went back to the mansion to report. The chief butler saw them off at the gate with a smile. However, when they disappeared, his face changed dramatically and he hurried to the inner courtyard. He ordered the servant to report the matter of the Imperial Guard's visit to the mansion to Xiao Wanru first, and then he followed. The chief butler had approved of Xiao Wanru before, so at this time, he naturally had to discuss something with Xiao Wanru. Such a matter was no longer something that he, a butler's servant, could solve. Even though he, a servant, used to be the chief butler in the palace, he did not dare to go against Xiao Wanru at this time. Just now, when the leader of the Imperial Guards came in, his murderous look clearly showed that the emperor had given an order. After that, he left because the brocade box was not opened, and he almost lost his life. Thinking of this, the chief butler felt a chill in his heart and continued to sweat. Xiao Wanru got the message from the servant first. When she heard about the brocade box, she was very surprised. Although she had guessed that someone was secretly plotting against her mansion, it was not easy to do something big, so she had to start with small things. However, she did not expect that this small brocade box seemed to have a big background, and it was related to the emperor, which really made her feel frightened. Originally, it was just a guess. She thought that these things would be revealed one by one, but she did not expect that things would change so quickly. Fortunately, the chief butler was cautious, otherwise the matter might have been exposed at this time. The chief butler came very quickly. When the servant told him the matter in detail, the chief butler had already come over. After asking someone to report to Xiao Wanru, the chief butler waited outside the corridor. It didn't take long for Xiao Wanru to invite the chief butler Indiana. All the other maids left, leaving only Yu Jie and Chu Lu, her two trusted subordinates. Looking at the chief butler's pale face, Xiao Wanru frowned slightly. She did not play dumb and directly asked, "Chief butler, do you know about the brocade box? Is someone trying to kill us?" Chapter 1054. Your Highness, someone does want to deal with us. If we open it rashly, it will inevitably cause a disaster. The chief butler lowered his head, and a trace of imperceptible panic flashed across his eyes. Even though he had been the chief butler of the former empress, the brocade box still shocked him. Xiao Wanru had been paying attention to the chief butler. Seeing the panic in his eyes, her heart suddenly skipped a beat, and she asked slowly, "Even the prince can't save us? If the prince is here, he may be able to save you, but now he is not here." the chief butler said implicitly without mentioning himself at all. Of course, he meant that even if Chu Luchen wanted to save him, he couldn't, and this was under the circumstance that Chu Luchen was in the mansion. In the current situation, even Xiao Wanru was in danger. Xiao Wanru took a deep breath. She did want to inquire about the brocade box, but now she immediately gave up this idea. The brocade box was so dangerous that she gave up decisively. Chief Butler, what do you think will happen next? Xiao Wanru stopped paying attention to the brocade box and changed the topic. The chief butler was relieved. The princess was smart, but she was young. He was afraid that she couldn't help being curious and continued to inquire about it. There were some things he knew and some things he didn't know. But no matter what he knew, it was wrong for the princess to inquire about it at this time. If someone with ulterior motives heard about it, he was not sure what kind of rumors would be spread. It was indeed the best and least suspicious way not to inquire about it at this time. Rest assured, Your Highness. At least we can be stable for a period of time now. The chief butler said. Such a thing had attracted the attention of the emperor. Although the Imperial guards did not come in to check the mansion before, they had indicated that their mansion had been targeted by the emperor's Imperial guards. Whoever dared to deal with the prince's mansion at this time would be noticed by the emperor. The person who delivered the brocade box should be an abandoned pawn. No matter how we investigate, we won't find anything. The person who delivered the brocade box first was the nephew of a eunuch in the palace. He was loyal to the former empress and died for the former empress. The brocade box should have nothing to do with him. At most, it's related to his nephew. Your Highness, I think it's better to send someone to investigate him at this time. The chief butler continued. He acted like he didn't know. Now that there was the matter of the brocade box, since he did not know about it, it was a separate problem. As the host, it was reasonable for him to send someone to inquire about it. Thank you for your trouble, head butler. Head butler, please handle this matter in the usual way. Xiao Wanru nodded and did not ask the chief butler specifically how to do it. This was a matter of the outer court. Since the chief butler did it normally, he had his own set of procedures. She didn't know that if she interfered, it would only ruin things. Don't worry, princess. I understand. The head butler nodded. This was indeed the best thing to do at this time, but it was also the most confusing. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said, I won't go out recently, and I'll inform my maternal grandma. If anyone comes to invite me in the future, you can also refuse them and say that I'm ill. Princess, you mean? The head butler didn't understand at first, but after thinking about it carefully, his eyes lit up. He looked at the little princess in front of him with great admiration. She was so young, but she could be so mature. She was really amazing to be able to keep calm. Everything in our mansion is as usual, but only Your Highness is not in good health? Xiao Wanru saw that he understood what she meant, so she said with a soft smile, It's just a little discomfort. There's no need to alarm the imperial physician, and there's no need to go out to find a doctor. Princess, I understand. The head butler nodded repeatedly. At this time, he was sincerely convinced by Xiao Wanru. Let's not do anything. Even if there are some things, it's a small matter. Let's see who can't bear it first. Xiao Wanru said meaningfully. This matter had come to an end for the time being. As long as the next matter was not in Prince Chen's mansion, it had nothing to do with her. She just needed to wait for Chu Liuchen's return. Under the intentional comfort of Xiao Wanru and the head butler, this matter was suppressed to the minimum in Prince Chen's mansion. The people in the mansion only knew that the young man who delivered the vegetables was arrogant. He only helped his uncle deliver the vegetables for 2 days, but he offended the master. After that, they didn't ask him to deliver the vegetables anymore. It was said that this person was also the nephew of the previous person who delivered the vegetables. The first person who delivered the vegetables was indeed sick. The servants in the mansion also heard that the Imperial guards came to find the remnants of the previous dynasty, but they didn't take it seriously. They just came to ask about it and then left. They even took away the young man who delivered the vegetables and was full of lies, which saved Prince Chen's mansion a lot of trouble. The whole Prince Chen's mansion was calm and everything was in order. There was no reaction in Prince Chen's mansion, but there was an undercurrent in the capital city. Many people were secretly worried. It seemed to be a simple matter, but many people intervened in it. In a remote and empty meditation room in Yuyun Temple, Master Jian, the abbot of Yuyun Temple, sat under a chair by the side window with his palms together and a bad look. Prince Cheng, who looked even worse, slammed his hand on the table so hard that several cups on the table jumped up. He said, "How could this be? Didn't you say that we would definitely succeed this time? As long as the brocade box is opened in Prince Chen's mansion, we will definitely be able to deal with Princess Chen. What's going on now?" How could he not be furious? He'd obtained this brocade box with great difficulty, and he'd been keeping it for so many years because he'd wanted to use it at the most appropriate time. However, not only had he failed to obtain any effect, he'd even wasted a trump card in his possession. Master Jian opened his eyes slowly and said, "Your Highness, have you found out that Princess Chen is fine?" "I've found out that the butler of Prince Chen's mansion is fine. He appeared in front of everyone and even went to find the person who delivered food to their mansion. He has been like this for so many years. How could he be fine?" Prince Cheng said angrily. He did not have many trump cards like this in his hands. Now it was useless and it was wasted. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The butler of Prince Chen's mansion is fine, but it doesn't mean that Princess Chen is fine. Master Jian did not believe that it was really useless, so he reminded Prince Cheng, "Your Highness, can we consider it from another aspect? The butler is fine, which means that he did not open the brocade box, but sent it to Princess Chen. No matter how smart Princess Chen is, she is still young." "Do you mean that something has happened to Princess Chen?" Prince Cheng's eyes lit up and his anger immediately subsided. "Your Highness, do you think it is possible that something has happened to Princess Chen? But this matter can't be known by others. If it has something to do with the emperor in the palace, the butler of Prince Chen's mansion doesn't dare to show any strange expression. He has been in the palace for so long and could become the butler of the former empress, so he has good judgment." Master Jian thought for a while and analyzed. Hearing this, Prince Cheng nodded repeatedly and said, "What you said makes some sense. He is just an old fox. He doesn't dare to disobey the emperor's order and his usual behavior is also pretending. If it is really like this, I'm afraid that something bad has happened to Princess Chen. But this is just our guess and we can't take it seriously." Prince Cheng's last sentence came back to the point. Although he did not think that Princess Chen could avoid it, it was too quiet in Prince Chen's mansion at the moment, as if nothing had happened, so he was really worried. "Your Highness, you'd better not take action rashly now. I am afraid that the Emperor has already paid attention to Prince Chen's mansion. No matter whether something has happened to Princess Chen or not, the Imperial Guards have already taken action that day. If you want to find out what happened to Princess Chen at this time, I am afraid that it will attract the Emperor's attention." Master Jian shook his head and thought that it was not the right time. "I know, but what if someone comes to ask to see Princess Chen, and it is a person who has to see her?" Prince Cheng knocked his hand on the table and said slowly, "Your Highness, you'd better not take action at this time. You have waited for so many years, so why are you in such a hurry? Anyway, you are not the only one who is anxious this time, and you are not the one who takes action this time. It is not necessary for you to arouse suspicion at this time. If the Emperor suspects you, it will be a big deal." Master Jian said meaningfully. Prince Cheng was not those princes. If he was really found to have an ulterior motive, the Emperor would definitely take action against him immediately and would not show mercy. "Okay, then let's wait a little longer and focus on Prince Zhou's mansion. It was he who sent this box to the Empress, so the person who directly took action should be related to Prince Zhou's mansion." "It is the best that your Highness can think so." Master Jian breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Prince Cheng would not listen to his advice and really take action rashly. In Prince Zhou's mansion, Chu Liuzhou was also angrily smashing his cup. There was only one other person in the study besides him, who was his uncle and the Empress's second brother, Ji Lingzhen. "Your Highness, the Empress told you not to let others see anything. You should do what you should do and don't be too close to Prince Chen's mansion," Ji Lingzhen advised. He wasn't the eldest son and didn't inherit the title of nobility. Usually he was just an idle servant. Usually he didn't look like a successful person, but in fact, he was always by Prince Zhou's side to help him make plans. Second uncle, didn't you say that this matter would inevitably cause chaos? Why is nothing happening now? Chu Liuzhou had always been bad-tempered. At this time, he felt more and more aggrieved. He felt that this kind of thing did not even cause a ripple, but his mother said it was so powerful before. This kind of thing was not as good as doing it with real knives and guns. If he wanted to make Princess Qin disappear in Prince Chen's mansion, the best way was to kidnap her or kill her. Now such a big thing seemed to be very powerful, but there was not even a ripple, which really made people feel that it was a joke. No, I have to find someone to ask about this. I can't just wait like this. Chu Liuzhou stood up and said to the outside, "Come in." "Your Highness, I'm here." A servant immediately came in at the door and said respectfully after saluting. Chapter 1055. Your Highness, please wait a minute. Ji Lingzhen hurriedly stood up and reached out to stop him. Your Highness, don't you think about what the Empress said? Thinking of the Empress's words, Chu Liuzhou was relieved. He waved his hand helplessly and said, "Leave." The servant hurriedly left. Second uncle, what should I do now? My mother told me not to do anything and just wait. But how can I get anything by waiting like this? Chu Luchen is coming to the capital city. Chu Liuzhou swung his sleeves impatiently and said, Your Highness, don't worry. I think you should be more patient at this time. You can't let others find out that you and the Empress want to do this. Although Ji Lingzhen was his uncle, he didn't dare to put on airs in front of Chu Liuzhou, so he could only persuade him softly. My mother asked me to wait all the time. If I keep waiting, Chu Luiwei will die. Now even Chu Luchen, the invalid, may be more important than me. Chu Liuzhou was angry. He felt that he couldn't wait any longer after waiting for so many years. He was the legitimate son, but why couldn't he be the crown prince? His mother was the empress in the palace, and he was the only son of his mother. No matter from which aspect, he should be the legitimate son. Compared with him, Chu Luiwei and Chu Luchen were nothing. However, his father was partial. Not only did he put Chu Luiwei in front of him, but now it seemed that this invalid also had a chance. Your Highness, don't worry. Shouldn't Prince Yu be anxious this time? That person was sent to Prince Chen's mansion by Prince Yu. Ji Lingzhen comforted the grumpy Chu Liuzhou with a smile. The person who sent the vegetables to Prince Chen's mansion was arranged by Prince Yu. The brocade box that the Empress occasionally got was also sent to Prince Chen's mansion by Prince Yu's people. If something happened, it should be Prince Yu who directly went to Prince Chen's mansion. Ji Lingzhen thought that Prince Zhou didn't have to be so anxious at all. Prince Yu was the most anxious person now. The Empress asked someone to let the brocade box fall into the hands of Concubinda's people. As expected, Concubinda and Prince Yu took action. Their people just added fuel to the fire, and the real failure should be Prince Yu. Her words reminded Chu Liuzhou. The grumpy look on his face eased. Thinking for a while, he suddenly laughed. Chu Luiwei wants to harm Prince Chen's mansion, but I didn't expect that he got nothing in the end. It really makes me happy. Looking at Zhou Wang, who looked like a child, Ji Lingzhen smiled helplessly. Second uncle, did it really fail? After laughing for a while, Chu Liuzhou suddenly stopped and asked a new question. Her Majesty said it might not work out. Ji Lingzhen said vaguely. So you didn't investigate clearly? Why didn't you investigate it clearly? Chu Liuzhou waved his sleeves discontentedly and said, We can't investigate Prince Chen's mansion at will now. The Emperor has sent the Imperial guards to keep an eye on it. Ji Lingzhen said. He was afraid that this prince would be moved and send people out to attract the Emperor's attention. Prince, you must not act rashly at this time. Is Princess Qin really fine? Chu Liuzhou focused on something else. I really don't know. I only heard that the Empress is sick, Ji Lingzhen said. At present, no one in Prince Chen's mansion dared to interfere again. The news they knew was often heard inadvertently. No one dared to inquire about it deliberately. Even the Empress did not dare to mention Princess Qin in front of the Emperor, so as not to attract the Emperor's attention. Chu Liuwei, how is it? Chu Liuzhou calmed down and asked. Prince Yu is also very calm. Nothing happened, Ji Lingzhen said. Chu Liuzhou sneered and said sarcastically, "He is really patient. He sent people to set up such a trap, but he got nothing in the end. But he is still so patient. He is indeed the most insidious among the brothers." Chu Liuzhou sneered and said, Prince Yu took action directly. Since he is so patient, why can't you be patient? Whether something happened to Princess Chen, or whether it really failed, you can't come forward to verify it. Prince Yu will be anxious. This time, you can just wait aside and watch the show. Anyway, it's impossible to find out that you are the culprit. Ji Lingzhen knew Prince Zhou's character. He said what Prince Zhou cared about. Chu Liuzhou nodded repeatedly. Second uncle, you're right. I know. I won't investigate this matter impulsively. I'll listen to my mother and second uncle and wait and see. Chu Liuzhou was satisfied and immediately listened to his mother's advice and said with a smile. Prince Yu's mansion was calm on the surface, but Chu Luiyue couldn't calm down in his study. Not only his advisor, Mr. Lu, but also when Shiqi was in his study. Sitting in the corner, when Shiqi was looking at a fan in his hand. It was an authentic work of a scholar of the previous dynasty that he admired. He nodded as he looked at it. It seemed that his attention was all on this authentic work. This was the excuse Chu Luiyue used to invite him here. But he had been paying attention to the conversation between Chu Luiyue and Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu, is it really useless? Chu Luiyue asked uneasily. It seems to be useless. Prince, you should be prepared for failure. Mr. Lu said implicitly. In the current situation, several counselors couldn't help persuading their masters. At this time, no matter who stood up for them, it would not end well. How could it fail? How could it fail? Mother said. Chu Luiyue immediately felt that he had said something wrong. He hurriedly stopped talking and coughed hard. Then his face softened. Mr. Lu, what should I do now? Please teach me. After saying that, he stood up and bowed to Mr. Lu respectfully. Mr. Lu hurriedly stood up and turned away, not daring to accept his bow. Prince, don't be so polite. We have to think about it in the long run. Mr. Lu said. The two of them sat down again. Mr. Lu, what do you think we should do now? Chu Luiyue asked respectfully again. Prince, we shouldn't do anything now. Just wait and see. I heard that Princess Chen has a small cold in the mansion, but I don't know if it's true. They said that it's not a big problem. They didn't invite Imperial physicians, so they can't find out for a while. Mr. Lu analyzed methodically. We'd better go to find out the news now, but we're afraid that the Emperor will find out. Mr. Lu was actually a little anxious. This idea was his, but it didn't work at the moment. He couldn't even figure out the truth. Yuan Qin, what do you think? Chu Luiyue thought for a while and suddenly turned to Wen Shiqi, who seemed to be focused on the fan. Hearing Chu Liuyue's question, Wen Shiqi raised his head and glanced at Mr. Lu, who was a little nervous. Prince Yu, we'd better think about it in the long run. He didn't pretend that he didn't hear it. He just said something that followed their thoughts. Yuan Qin, do you think we should take the initiative to find out about Princess Chen? Chu Luiyue asked hurriedly, and his eyes fell on Wen Shiqi's face. Wen Shiqi didn't seem to notice the tentative look in Chu Liuyue's eyes. He thought for a while and said, It's not convenient for you to go to Prince Chen's mansion to find out. Actually, you can go to Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion. His words reminded Chu Luiyue, and he nodded repeatedly. Yuan Qin, you're right. I should go to see my grandaunt. At this time in the past, I would also go to see her. Among the princes, although Chu Luiyue looked cold, he had always been good to the elders of the royal family. Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion was one of the places he paid special attention to. When he was young, he received concubinda's order and went to Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion from time to time. Later, when Xiao Yanru lived in Great Elder Princess's mansion, he went there more frequently. Chu Liuzhou followed him to Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion. During the period when Xiao Yanru was raised in Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion, Chu Liuzhou also went there a lot. After Xiao Yanru returned to Duke Xing's mansion, Chu Liuzhou basically didn't go there, but Chu Luiyue still went to see Ru and Great Elder Princess from time to time. For this reason, the emperor often praised him in front of concubinda, saying that he was a person who respected elders. It was indeed the time to visit and great elder princess at this time. After thinking about this, Chu Luiwei asked when Shichi and Mr. Lu to go back first. He asked someone to prepare gifts and went to and great elder princess's mansion. When the carriage arrived at great elder princess's mansion, the gatekeeper saw that it was Prince Yu's carriage, so he asked someone to report and unbolted the door, inviting Prince Yu to enter. In the past, His Royal Highness Prince Yu often came. The gatekeeper naturally recognized His Royal Highness Prince Yu's carriage. After leading the carriage to the parking lot inside, Chu Luiwei got out of the carriage and saw two beautiful servant girls already waiting in front of him. Seeing him come down, they hurriedly stepped forward and saluted, "Your Highness." Chu Luiwei waved his hand politely and asked, "How is my grand aunt? The weather has been bad recently, so I brought some tonics here." "Thank you, Your Highness. Our first princess knows that you are here and has been waiting for you. She is in good health." "Thank you, Your Highness, for your concern." One of the servant girls answered cleverly, and the other added a few words on the side with a smile. Chu Luiwei nodded and followed the servant girls inside. When he arrived in front of and great elder princess, he stepped forward with a smile and saluted, "Good morning, grand aunt." "Prince Yu, you are too polite. Please sit down," and great elder princess said with a smile. Chu Luiwei did not stand on ceremony anymore and sat down. The servant girls served tea. He picked up the teacup and took a sip before saying, "Grand, did you have any old problems?" And great elder princess looked strong, but in fact, she was not very good, especially at this time. She was prone to some small problems. "Thank you, Your Highness, for your concern. I am in good health," and great elder princess said. After asking a few more questions with concern, Chu Luiwei got to the point. "Where is Cousin Hao? Shouldn't he be here at this time in the past?" Chu Luiwei thought clearly. Compared with and great elder princess, Xiao Yuanhao was the breakthrough point. "Hao was sick before, and I also have a headache." And great elder princess sighed and said helplessly, "Sick? Isn't it terrible? I happen to bring an Imperial physician with me. Let him check on Hao." Chu Luiwei stood up with concern. Chapter 1056. And great elder princess looked at Chu Luiwei with a trace of serenity in her eyes and said, "He has taken the medicine before and should be asleep now. Since he has fallen asleep, I will come to see Cousin Hao next time." Chu Luiwei said with a smile, "Cousin Hao is now the heir of Marquis Xing, and my wish has been fulfilled. All of this belongs to Hao." And great elder princess's face turned cold. "No matter what, it belongs to Hao, but will Marquis Xing really be willing to accept it? You'd better be careful," Chu Luiwei said with concern. Chu Luiwei paused and said, "Grand aunt, do you know that the first young master of Marquis Xing's car collided with Yuan An's?" "What do you mean?" And great elder princess frowned and didn't understand what Chu Luiwei meant. The great elder princess had naturally heard of this matter before, as it had caused quite a stir in the past. "Actually," Chu Luiwei hesitated for a moment and looked at the people around and great elder princess. And great elder princess coughed in a low voice and said, "Don't worry, they are all my confidants. Just say what you want to say." When Infanta Yuan was hit, Xiaohua was actually fine. And asked someone to beat him. Chu Luiwei lowered his voice a little. And great elder princess's eyes immediately widened and she asked, "Why? Why? When I was the heir of Marquis, I once went to Aunt Ruiping's mansion. Speaking of this, Aunt Ruiping should also dislike Marquis Xing very much," Chu Luiwei said with a smile. His words were implicit, but it was not difficult to understand the meaning behind it. Chu Luiwei said something in front of and great elder princess, so and great elder princess also disliked Marquis Xing. Therefore, after Infanta Yuan was hit, she found an excuse to beat Xiaohua. This was a show of goodwill to and great elder princess. When Infanta Yuan was in the palace, she said it was completely an accident. And great elder princess was stunned and then understood. She smiled more gently, narrowed her eyes and nodded with appreciation. "Has Yuan recovered from his injury?" "Her face was injured," My second brother sent a miracle-working doctor with excellent medical skills, so there should be no big problem, Chu Luiyue said. Her face was injured. Second brother of a miracle-working doctor with excellent medical skills, so there should be no big problem. This was in Infanta Yuan An's favor as well as Chu Luiyue's. Hearing this, Chu Luiyue was overjoyed. If he could make and great elder princess stand on his side, he would benefit a lot. Not to mention the relationship between and great elder princess and the Empress Dowager, and great elder princess granddaughter was Xiao Wanru, and she had always stood firmly behind Xiao Wanru, which was enough to make Xiao Wanru work for him. Chu Liuchen's actual situation had always been a mystery. If he could place a chess piece beside Chu Liuchen, it would be too advantageous for him. Great Aunt, Infanta Yuan An's injury should not be a big problem. It doesn't matter whether you go or not. If you go too soon, it will make people suspicious, and Marquis Xing's mansion may seize something and say something to my father. Chu Luiyue said for and great elder princess's sake. He just said what he said casually to please and great elder princess. If and great elder princess went to Ruaping great elder princess to say something, it would be inappropriate. It was good that everyone knew it. And great elder princess, after thinking for a while, she nodded and said, I worry too much. Great Aunt, I'm afraid that Xiao Jing will not let go of Cousin Hao's matter, will he? After showing his goodwill, Chu Luiyue looked more and more concerned. And great elder princess said with a cold snort with a straight face, he can do whatever he wants. I'm not afraid of him. Great Aunt, you are not afraid, but what if Xiao Jing wants to deal with Princess Chen and Cousin Hao? Third brother is not in the mansion at this time. If something happens in the mansion, Princess Chen is too young to deal with it. Chu Luiyue reminded and great elder princess. Even if Prince Chen is not here, Xiao Jing can't use filial piety to suppress Princess Chen. Moreover, old madam of Marquis Xing is not in the mansion. And great elder princess had been paying attention to the affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion. She knew that old madam had already packed up and went to the Yuhui nunnery. Old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion could suppress Xiao Jing with filial piety, but Marquis Xing's mansion, Xiao Jing. Great Aunt, you are right. I'm just afraid that Xiao Jing is not simple. I heard that the emperor sent imperial guards to Prince Chen's mansion before. I don't know if it has anything to do with Xiao Jing. Chu Luiyue came here today to inquire about Xiao Wanru. He originally wanted to ask Xiao Yuanhao. Since Xiao Yuanhao was ill, he could only ask and great elder princess indirectly. And great elder princess waved her hand and said indifferently, it was a false alarm. It's nothing. The emperor sent people to catch the remnants of the previous dynasty. He thought that they fell into Prince Chen's mansion, so he left after asking the butler of Prince Chen's mansion. He didn't disturb Princess Chen, so it is unlikely to have anything to do with Xiao Jing. Xiao Wanru was fine? My plan has failed? Chu Luiyue was shocked, but he didn't show it on his face. He still looked concerned and said, that's good. Since third brother is not here, I'm afraid that Marquis Xing's mansion will make trouble again. Father also asked about third brother the day before yesterday. Did the emperor say when Prince Chen will return to the capital city? And great elder princess became spirited. Great Aunt, please forgive me for not telling you. Chu Luiyue said in embarrassment. This kind of thing was also a military and state affair, so he really couldn't tell her. Nothing would happen on the way to the capital city under normal circumstances, but he couldn't guarantee that no one would try to harm Chu Liuchen or the two princesses of the Su kingdom who followed him to the capital city. Exposing Chu Liuchen's itinerary could lead to an accident. It was best not to ask or tell. I asked too much. And great elder princess understood what he meant and said slowly, Great Aunt, if third brother enters the capital city, I will inform you immediately. Chu Luiyue stood up and said with a smile, I have something to do now, so I won't disturb you. And great elder princess nodded and said, if you have something to do, you can leave now. After bowing to and great elder princess, Chu Luiyue turned around and strode away. And great elder princess frowned slightly. What Chu Luiyue said when he came over was not important at all. There seemed to be no substantive problem. What was his purpose? Zhuozhuo had sent someone to tell her that if anyone came to inquire about her, and great elder princess would pay special attention to it. But now, there were many people who asked about Zhuozhuo. Several madams who came and went with her in the past would talk about Zhuozhuo when they met her. In particular, the emperor's imperial guards had once entered Prince Chen's mansion. Except for these frequent visitors. His wife, Ruiping Great Elder Princess, mentioned her granddaughter to Chu Luiyue, who was the one secretly plotting against his granddaughter. Ruian Great Elder Princess had always felt that Ruian Great Elder Princess was suspicious, but now she also felt that Chu Luiyue seemed to be a little suspicious. She just thought about Chu Luiyue's words and didn't say anything. She just casually said a few words of concern. Who on earth was it? And Great Elder Princess was very confused. But no matter what, she had to tell her granddaughter about it. Her granddaughter was smart and would definitely find clues from these people. Chu Luiyue walked out with a calm look, but his heart was already in turmoil. Xiao Wenru was fine, so his plan did not succeed. He was a little angry in his heart, but he couldn't help thinking about it. The plan was so meticulous and could be said to be closely linked. What went wrong? How could the people of Prince Chen's mansion escape? Needless to say, the chief butler of Prince Chen's mansion should have fallen into the trap this time, but nothing happened to him at the moment. It would be much easier to deal with Xiao Wenru after getting rid of the chief butler of Prince Chen's mansion. At that time, it would not take much effort to kill Xiao Wenru or make her disappear. The chief butler of Prince Chen's mansion was the most important trouble. The identity of the former chief butler of the Empress was enough to let people know that this chief butler was not simple and easy to deal with. After getting on the carriage, Chu Luiyue's face became cold and there was a trace of fierceness in his eyes. There must be a reason for it, but he didn't know which part went wrong. The carriage slowly went out of the gate of Ru and Great Elder Princess Mansion. Go to the Savant's building. Chu Luiyue ordered as soon as they got out of the door. The coachman answered, raised his whip and drove the carriage in a different direction, heading for Chu Luiyue's favorite Savant's building. On the halfway, the carriage stopped for a moment. A little eunuch dressed as a manservant got off the carriage and ran away quickly. He was ordered to go to the deputy prime minister's mansion to invite third young master Wen Shichi. The business of the Savant's building was very good. Those who had passed the examination had not been officially appointed, so they would hold banquets here from time to time. In addition, many elegant people also liked to come here, so the business was getting better and better. When Chu Luiyue got off the carriage, a sharp-eyed waiter immediately saw him and recognized him. He came up to him with a smile and said, "Your Highness, please." Chu Luiyue had ordered before that the waiter here was not allowed to call him Your Highness, indicating that he didn't want to reveal his identity here. Chu Luiyue followed him into the Savant's building. The first floor was almost full, so he didn't stay here and went straight to the fourth floor. There was a private room on the fourth floor, which had been reserved for him by the restaurant. Who is this? Didn't they say that there were no private rooms left? Someone said unhappily when he saw the waiter leading the person to the private room upstairs with a fawning face. He must be a noble child in the capital city. Even if we pass the examination, we can't compare with him. Another man beside him raised the corner of his mouth and said in a sarcastic tone. He was really unconvinced. Some of them had passed the examination, and some had not. When they drank together before, they were quite congenial, so they deliberately gathered here a few more times. They originally wanted to book a private room, but just now the waiter kept saying that there were no private rooms left. Now that someone was directly led upstairs, he was very unconvinced. Yan Shi also followed Chu Luiyue up. Coincidentally, he was also among this group of people. Chapter 1057. When Shichi followed the servant who led the way and walked slowly to the stairs. When he reached the top of the stairs, he turned slightly and looked at Yan Shi, who was looking at him from below. The two of them looked at each other and turned away quietly. When Shichi knew the person in charge of Wang Xingshue's incident, Yan Shi knew the Zhuang Yuan of the previous circle and the current official of the Ministry of Justice. When Shichi continued to go up and Yan Shi lowered her head thoughtfully, When he went up to the fourth floor, he pushed open the door of the private room and saw Chu Luiyue sitting there with a gloomy face, holding a wine glass. He took 2 steps forward and saluted, "Your Highness." "Yuan Qing, don't be so polite. Please sit down." Chu Luiyue reached out and pressed his forehead with his eyebrows slightly relaxed. Wen Shiqi did not stand on ceremony and sat down on the chair opposite Chu Luiyue. A pair of cups had already been placed there. A little eunuch dressed as a servant came over and poured a glass of wine for him and stepped aside. "Your Highness, what's the matter?" Wen Shiqi did not raise his glass. He looked at Chu Luiyue's face and asked, "Yuan Qing and I grew up together and were friends when we were young. Now Yuan Qing is on my side wholeheartedly. I won't hide it from you. Nothing happened in Prince Chen's mansion. Yuan Qing, please help me analyze why nothing happened. Didn't father find any prohibited items in Prince Chen's mansion?" Chu Luiyue said. The brocade box involved too many things. Even if he told Wen Shiqi, he only mentioned it vaguely. He only said that he accidentally got a prohibited item related to the previous dynasty. Although this matter was discussed by Chu Luiyue and Mr. Lu, they did not hide it from Wen Shiqi when they talked about it in the study afterwards. "Is Princess Chen all right?" Wen Shiqi asked calmly. "She's fine. It should be a common physical discomfort. It's not what I thought before. Father has already controlled someone to kill Princess Chen." Chu Luiyue frowned and said. He had thought that there was no news about Xiao Wanru because she was imprisoned by his father with the excuse of illness and then died before Chu Luiyue entered the capital city. Compared with a sudden death, this reason was much more sufficient and acceptable. If Princess Chen is fine and there is no change in Prince Chen's mansion, then Prince's plan will definitely fail. Wen Shiqi said lightly, "Your Highness, you'd better not act rashly now. Although Prince Chen is not in the capital city, His Majesty's attention has been drawn to Prince Chen's mansion. Your Highness, perhaps you should think about how you got the so-called prohibited goods." "I got it by chance." Chu Luiyue's pupils contracted and his eyes twitched. He suddenly felt that he had missed something. Whether he got it by chance or someone did it on purpose, Your Highness, you'd better figure it out. Wen Shiqi said, "Maybe this is the key reason why things went wrong." Chu Luiyue's heart thumped twice, and he tentatively asked, "Do you mean that someone may have schemed against me? Your Highness, you should know best whether someone schemed against you or not." Wen Shiqi said. Chu Luiyue's face changed. He didn't know what was in the brocade box, but he saw that his mother's face changed, and then she told him not to open it and asked him to give the hot brocade box away, saying that it was a troublemaker. If the emperor found out who had it, it would be a big disaster. Because of this mysterious brocade box, he later borrowed the strength of others to fight against others. Could it be that someone did it on purpose? He got this brocade box in the Imperial Palace. At that time, he saw a little eunuch running out of a place in a panic and happened to run in front of him. After he was caught, the little eunuch hit the wall and died without saying anything, leaving only this brocade box. Seeing the rust on the brocade box, Chu Luiyue paid attention to it at that time and didn't open it. Instead, he went to find his mother, concubine Da. His mother seemed to know something, but she wasn't very clear. When she saw the brocade box, her face changed dramatically. If someone in the Imperial Palace schemed against him, it was most likely to be the Empress. He really thought it was a coincidence before, and then he was attracted by concubine Da's expression, so he didn't think about other possibilities in this matter for a while. Being reminded by Wen Shiqi, Chu Luiyue immediately realized that he might have fallen into the trap of the Empress and her son. Not only he had such an idea, but the Empress and her son should also want to let Chu Luchen marry Princess Yutao of the Su Kingdom. Chu Luiyue slammed his hand on the table so hard that the bowls and plates on the table jumped up. He suddenly stood up and paced back and forth twice before he stood still and said, "I should have fallen into your trap. Your Highness, if there is really something wrong with the brocade box, then it is normal for the following things to change." Wen Shiqi said indifferently as if he didn't see the rage on Chu Luiyue's face. "Yuan Qing sect, please." Chu Luiyue bowed to Wen Shiqi. Wen Shiqi hurriedly stood up to return the salute. The two of them sat down again. If there is really something wrong with the brocade box, it means that someone else wants to plot against Prince Chen's mansion. They may be watching the show from the sidelines, or they may expose Prince's matter to Prince Chen's mansion and let Princess Chen know that what happened before was done by Prince Chen, making Prince's mansion and Prince Chen really go against each other. When Shichi said, "Go against Prince Chen's mansion? Go against Chu Luchen?" Thinking of Chu Luchen, Chu Liyue's heart twitched for no reason, and there was a dark mist looming in his eyes. He was jealous and resentful. He was his father's son, but why did his father take care of this invalid more than himself? They should be watching a good show. It is impossible for them to expose my behavior to Prince Chen's mansion. Chu Liyue shook his head and said decisively, "Since they are here to watch a good show, they may do something in secret. Maybe the people in Prince Chen's mansion know some clues. Since there can't be any accident in Prince Chen's mansion, the news must have been leaked by another party in secret," when Shichi said unhurriedly. Chu Liyue was shocked, but after thinking about it carefully he felt that it made sense. He nodded repeatedly and said, "There is absolutely no accident here, and no one found out about it later. It seems that there is a third party behind this matter, who wants to see me play a good show, but I didn't expect that someone found the trace." This could explain what happened in Prince Chen's mansion. Chu Liyue's face turned livid with anger. He had always thought that he was the one sitting on the fishing platform, but now he found that in this careful plan he was the one in the foreground, and someone had secretly spied on him. When Shichi and Chu Liyue didn't leave the private room together, he left first. After going downstairs, he looked at Yen Shi strangely again. After they looked at each other silently, Yen Shi smiled at Wen Shichi and silently raised the wine glass in her hand to Wen Shichi. Wen Shichi went downstairs and went straight to Yen Shi. He cupped his hands to her and said, "Yen Tanhua." "Lord Wen," Yen Shi said. After being stunned for a moment, she put down the wine glass in her hand, stood up, and cupped her hands to salute Wen Shichi. All the people around were stunned. Some people who knew Wen Shichi whispered to the people around them, "He is the top scholar of the previous year, the third child of Prime Minister Wen's mansion." "Third child Wen." "Lord Wen." The scholars who came with Yen Shi stood up together. The top scholar was always the most respected scholar. Moreover, Wen Shichi was still young even now, so it could be seen that he was famous at that time. Wen Shichi smiled and cupped his hands, and then said to Yen Shi, "Child Yen, would you do me the honor to drink a cup of wine? It's better to meet by chance than to invite you." "I should invite you. Lord Wen, please," Yen Shi said and looked around. There happened to be an empty table near the window, so she hurriedly led them there. The waiter had already cleaned up the table quickly. The two of them went over and sat down, and the waiter served tea. "Lord Wen, is it about the previous case?" Yen Shi asked as soon as she sat down. "It's about this indeed. I want to ask you, child Yen," Wen Shichi said with a faint expression. "Lord Wen, please go ahead." Yen Shi's face tightened, thinking that there would be a follow-up to this matter. Although Wang Xingxue was dead, this matter was considered over. It was said that Wang Xingxue had done it alone, and his accomplice, Ning Kaixian, was also banished. The matter was completely over here, but Yen Shi always felt that it should not be ended in this way. "Child Yen, do you think that Wang Xingxue's case has something to do with Marquis Xing's mansion?" Wen Shichi asked directly. Yen Shi's eyes fell on Wen Shichi's face. She calmed down and said carefully, "Does the Ministry of Justice have any other doubts about this matter?" The official of the Ministry of Justice said that this matter had nothing to do with anyone else but Wang Xingxue. That was what the official of the Ministry of Justice said at that time. After saying that, he turned around and left, without giving Yen Shi a chance to argue. The Ministry of Justice has closed the case and said that it was all Wang Xingxue's business, but I still think there are some doubtful points in it. "Child Yen, do you think this matter has anything to do with Princess Chen?" Wen Shichi asked again, staring at Yen Shi sharply. "Lord Wen, how can this matter have anything to do with Princess Chen?" Yen Shi's face also darkened, and her eyes fell on Wen Shichi suspiciously. "It has nothing to do with Princess Chen?" Wen Shichi asked again. "Absolutely not." Yen Shi answered decisively. He really felt that this matter had nothing to do with Princess Chen. Then it should have something to do with Marquis Xing, right? When Shichi's expression softened, and he said with a slight smile, "It shouldn't have anything to do with him." She relaxed, shook her head, and said with a wry smile, "Although I lived in Marquis Xing's mansion before, it was the elder's idea. In the past, I have been studying behind closed doors, and I have only met Marquis Xing a few times. Why does he need to harm a junior like me?" When Shichi carefully observed Shi's expression, after a long while, he said slowly, "Then I overthought. I thought there was something hidden about Wang Xingshue's case. Since there is nothing, I'm sorry to disturb you, Yan Tanhua." As he said, he stood up and cupped his hands to salute, and Shi also stood up to return the salute. "Lord Wen, you're too polite." When Shichi's eyes fell on Shi's face thoughtfully again, and he was in a trance for a moment. He had seen Shi in his dream. What did this person have to do with him? Chapter 1058. Your Highness, Great Elder Princess said that only some old madams who had been in contact with you before asked about you. However, Ruaping Great Elder Princess and Prince Yu also mentioned you, which surprised her a little. The other old madams couldn't tell who asked about you on purpose. An old maid of and Great Elder Princess's mansion reported. Prince Yu went there in person? Xiao Wanru was shocked and put down the maple leaf in her hand. She was about to finish pasting the painting in her hand and was now decorating it. "Prince Yu used to come to our mansion." Great Elder Princess said that it was nothing. The old maid answered cleverly. On the way here, Great Elder Princess repeatedly told her to make it clear so as not to misunderstand Princess Chen. "Does Ruaping Great Elder Princess come here in the past?" Xiao Wanru asked with a smile after thinking for a while. "Ruaping Great Elder Princess seldom comes to our mansion. Ruaping Great Elder Princess and our Great Elder Princess are not close in the past, so they just treat each other on the surface. This time, she came here to gossip and asked about Princess Chen from time to time. She also said that Infanta Yuan and was in a bad mood and wanted you to comfort her. We are all young people, so it is convenient for us to talk about some things." The old maid said. "How is Infanta Yuan An's face?" Xiao Wanru asked. "It seems that she will recover soon, but Infanta Yuan An is in a bad mood." Ruaping Great Elder Princess didn't say what it was exactly. "I see. If there is any abnormal person asking about me, ask Grandma to send someone to tell me," Xiao Wanru nodded and said. The old maid of and Great Elder Princess's mansion answered and left. Chu Li gave her a basin of water. After washing her hands, Xiao Wanru walked to the window and looked at the sky. It was sunny outside, and it was a good time to enjoy the scenery. "Let's go to the garden and have a look." Xiao Wanru walked out. Chu Lu and Yu Jie hurriedly followed her. Prince Chen's mansion covered a large area, and the garden was even more exquisite. There were waterside pavilions, winding rivers, and exquisite painted pleasure boats on the water. Everywhere showed the elegant and gorgeous atmosphere of the royal family. It was reasonable that this place was called the Nangong Palace. If there was no such a small side door, it would not be strange to directly include Prince Chen's mansion into the Imperial Palace. Standing in front of a step, Xiao Wanru stopped and looked out leisurely. After marrying into Prince Chen's mansion for so long, there were some knots in her heart that she had never gotten rid of. For example, she had never gone to this place before, but this place was very vivid in her memory. In front of her, the flowers reflected the tall eaves of the balcony. Under the 2 rows of tall trees, there was an exquisite pavilion, but there was a bone-piercing chill in her heart. No matter how hard she tried, she could not take the next step. The tall palace, the magnificent steps, the noble atmosphere of the royal family, under the reflection of these trees, was pressing nobility, but also pressing blood. His breathing unconsciously became heavy, as if the soles of his feet had fallen into a thick layer of mud, and he could not take another step forward. "Princess, what's wrong with you?" Yu Jie noticed her strange expression and hurriedly reached out to help her. Xiao Wanru's delicate little face was pale, and her lips were as pale as her face. "Your Highness." Chu Lu also noticed Xiao Wanru's abnormality and said anxiously. She closed her eyes hard, took a deep breath, suppressed the feeling of nausea, pulled herself together, shook her head and said, "I'm fine." Standing still, she finally turned around and walked to the pavilion on the side. He walked further away from this place and further away from it. "Your Highness, are you not feeling well? Do you want an imperial physician to come and have a look?" Yujia helped her into the pavilion and asked with concern, "I can take your pulse first." "No, I just felt a little uncomfortable all of a sudden just now. I'm fine now." Xiao Wanru shook her head. "Your Highness, shall I ask Mingqiu Nun to come and have a look at you?" Yujia blinked her eyes and suggested. Xiao Wanru's current situation looked extremely bad, so she was really worried about her. "Don't bother Mingqiu Nun and disturb her cultivation. We have agreed to invite Mingqiu Nun to come and have a talk in a few days," Xiao Wanru said. When she invited Mingqiu Nun to come last time, she had agreed to invite Mingqiu Nun a few days later. At this time, it was not the time for Mingqiu Nun to enter the mansion, and it was easy to bring danger to Mingqiu Nun. Prince Chen's mansion was also troubled at the moment, so Xiao Wanru was unwilling to involve Mingqiu Nun in it. "Your Highness, is it because of the words sent by someone from Great Elder Princess's mansion just now?" Chu Lu thought for a while and felt that it was very possible. The princess had been fine before, but after someone from Great Elder Princess's mansion came, she went out for a walk and felt uncomfortable. "It's not because of these words." Xiao Wanru shook her head again. "Your Highness, do you think it is the people from Prince Zhou's mansion or Prince Yu's mansion who schemed against you?" Yujia asked more directly. In fact, she had wanted to ask before, but she didn't dare to ask more when she saw Xiao Wanru's bad look. Of course, the ultimate goal of scheming against Prince Chen was Prince Zhou or Prince Yu. Prince Xian was too young and jumpy, so it didn't seem to be him. I think it may also be the people from Prince Cheng's mansion. I heard that the brocade box has been rusted for many years. At that time, Prince Yu and Prince Zhou were still young, but Prince Cheng was already an adult at that time. Chu Lu retorted with a different meaning. She thought that Prince Cheng was most likely the mastermind of this scheme. But only Ruaping Great Elder Princess and Prince Yu are a little strange. Infanta Yuan and is the future Princess Zhou, and Prince Yu came in person. It doesn't seem to be that simple. Yujia retorted. She still felt that Prince Zhou and Prince Yu were suspicious. Even if the brocade box was locked and had little to do with Prince Zhou and Prince Yu, the Empress and concubine must have passed by that time. But Chu Lu was unconvinced and wanted to argue, but Xiao Wanru shook her hand to stop her. "How can the Empress and concubine be despised by anyone?" Xiao Wanru said with a cold face. "We." Yujia and Chu Lu looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. They knelt down with a plop and said, "We made a slip of the tongue. Please punish us, Your Highness." This is Prince Chen's mansion. Although the prince said that you can talk here without worry, there are too many people here. If someone spreads the news, do you want to die? Xiao Wanru asked with a little anger on her face. Thinking of this terrible consequence, the two servant girls trembled and said hurriedly, "Your Highness, we don't dare to do it again. Your Highness, we don't dare to do it again." You have to remember that the Nangong Palace is also the Imperial Palace. It's okay if the people in the Imperial Palace don't know what happened in it. If they want to know, it's easy to be found out, Xiao Wanru warned. The two servant girls were alarmed. What Xiao Wanru said just now also made her vigilant. In the past, she didn't restrain them much. If they still behaved like this after entering the Imperial Palace, she would definitely kill the two servant girls. "Your Highness, we know," the two of them said in unison. At this time, they were really panicked. Just now, the two of them were so excited that they forgot that they were outdoors. Now when they thought of it, they felt weak. How could the Empress and concubine be talked about casually? Moreover, they talked about such a rebellious topic. If you can't do it in the future, I don't dare to keep you anymore. I simply let you go and let you be free people after leaving the mansion. It's better for you to stay far away from the capital city. I really neglected you in the past. How dare you say such things outside? Xiao Wanru said angrily. Your Highness, we know we're wrong. We don't dare to do it again. Hearing that Xiao Wanru didn't want them anymore, the two servant girls were so flustered that they burst into tears. They hurriedly kowtowed to Xiao Wanru 3 times and said, "Be careful with your words and deeds. Those who don't live long in the Imperial Palace are those who don't know how to be careful with their words and deeds." Seeing that the 2 servant girls sincerely admitted their mistakes, Xiao Wanru sighed and looked a little relaxed. "Get up. Remember to be more careful outside in the future. If you are in the Imperial Palace, even in the room, you should be careful." "I know." The 2 servant girls wiped their tears and stood up. Knowing that the princess did it for their own good, they couldn't help but feel shocked. After arriving at Prince Chen's mansion, there was nothing to do, and it seemed that they were much less vigilant. In the past, they would never say such things outside the room. Even if they said it in the room, they would keep their voices low and speak carefully. "Your Highness, what is that servant girl doing?" When Chu Lu was wiping her tears, she suddenly saw a figure. She looked up and saw a servant girl hiding behind a clump of trees in the distance, behaving furtively. "Let's go and have a look." Xiao Wanru also turned her eyes over. Yu Jie walked over quickly and soon came over with a trembling servant girl. "I pay my respects to your Highness." The 12 or 13 years old servant girl looked very panicked. Standing in front of Xiao Wanru, she couldn't even finish her words. "Where are you from?" Xiao Wanru looked the little servant girl up and down and asked gently. "I'm tending to the flowers and plants in the garden. Just now when I saw your Highness coming over, I was scared so I hid. I didn't mean it." The little servant girl looked very scared and reported in a trembling voice. "What did you hide just now?" Yu Jie took a step forward and reached out to point at the little servant girl's wrist. The little servant girl's hand was tightly curled up and half of it was hidden in her sleeve. Because of the panic, the cuffs were half turned up. If one didn't look carefully, they really couldn't see it. "I'm nothing." The servant girl subconsciously hid her hand back. "Take out the thing in her hand," Xiao Wanru said slowly. Yu Jie took 2 steps forward, grabbed the little servant girl's hand, and struggled to throw it out. However, compared with Yu Jie, who was born with great strength, the servant girl's strength was not worth mentioning at all. The wrist hidden in the sleeve was pulled out, and a very thin gold bracelet could be seen on the wrist. It was very thin and a little flattened by Yu Jie, but it was still a gold bracelet. It was definitely not something that a little servant girl like Yu Jie in front of her could afford to wear. The loose gold bracelet was obviously not suitable for a little servant girl to wear, so Yu Jie pulled it off easily. Chapter 1059. It was a very small gold bracelet. When Yu Jie pulled it down hard, it was twisted. It turned out that it was not round because of the round gold bracelet. It was very thin and had no pattern. "Where did you get this gold bracelet?" Xiao Wanru asked. My mother left it to me," the servant girl said in panic. "Since it is your mother's gold bracelet, why did you hide it? It's not suitable to wear it on your hand. Aren't you afraid of losing it when you work?" Xiao Wanru asked softly. The servant girl became more panicked and hurriedly shook her head. "No, I won't lose it. I will be very careful. It's just a memento left by my mother. I'm afraid that others will see it and think it belongs to the prince's mansion, so I wear it carefully." Xiao Wanru handed the bracelet in her hand to Yu Jie and said, "I didn't expect your mother to pass on such a good thing to you. It seems that your original family background is not bad. I'll ask Nanny Yu to check her background later and see if she has such a biological mother. If there's nothing wrong, return the gold bracelet to her." Every servant would leave a clear record of her background when she entered the mansion. Such a bracelet was enough to buy so many servant girls. Your Highness, please forgive me. It's really left by my mother. I'm afraid that someone will rob it, so I hid it secretly. Your Highness, I'm really your mother." The servant girl kowtowed and cried. "Since it's true, what's wrong with checking it? Can't you check it?" Chu Lu said deliberately, "I'll ask Nanny Yu to come here now and find out your background. Judging from the honest appearance of this bracelet, it should be from a family with some property." "No, it's not mine. Your Highness, it's not mine. I picked it up." Seeing that Chu Lu was about to leave, the servant girl was so scared that her face changed dramatically. She burst into tears and stammered to confess. "It's not your bracelet? Where did you pick it up?" Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on the bracelet again. The bracelet, which was made of fine gold thread without any pattern, was not like the kind of exquisite bracelet. At first glance, it didn't show any color. If it weren't for the excessive flustered behavior of a maid, Xiao Wanru wouldn't have suspected it. "I picked it up over there, behind that flower, where I was standing just now." The little maid pointed and cried. She was really scared. Xiao Wanru walked forward, and the little maid hurriedly got up and followed her. They came to the back of the shrub before, where there was a tree with flowers in full bloom. Some of them had withered and fallen to the ground. The pink petals were extremely beautiful, but now they had fallen into the mud and broken all over the ground. "Your Highness, I picked her up here. I saw you and the other sisters as soon as I picked her up. I was about to leave in a panic, but the other sisters found me." The little maid wiped her tears shyly and said. Now that the words hidden in his heart were out, he was no longer as nervous as before. There were petals, fallen leaves, and some branches. There was a small hole under the tree. "Your Highness, look. The bracelet was originally buried here, and only a little is exposed. When I saw it just now, I dug out a small hole." The little maid was afraid that Xiao Wanru wouldn't believe it, so she pointed to a small hole in the branches and leaves and said, "You just dug it out?" Xiao Wanru stared at her and asked again. "Your Highness, I really just dug it out, and then I saw your Highness and the two elder sisters. I originally wanted to hide and wait for your Highness and the two elder sisters to leave before leaving." The little maid was so scared that her tears fell down again. She looked at Xiao Wanru expectantly and begged. "Did you see anyone here before?" Xiao Wanru asked. "I didn't see anyone. When I came here, I didn't see anyone else. I didn't even notice you and the two sisters before. When I dug out the bracelet, I was overjoyed and found you and the two sisters here." The little maid cried again. She was really scared. She had thought that getting a gold bracelet was a good thing, but now it didn't seem to be a good thing at all. It was obviously a fatal thing. If she had known it earlier, she would not have been greedy just now. She would have directly presented the bracelet to the princess, and then nothing would have happened. "Is there really no one here?" Xiao Wanru thought for a moment and said to Yu Jie, "Take her back first and then ask her." "Your Highness, I really didn't see anyone." The little maid was so scared that her face turned pale. Her legs went soft and she was about to kneel down again, but Yu Jie reached out to stop her. "Your Highness asked you to go back with us. Just follow us. Don't talk so much." Yu Jie rebuked her. The little maid shivered and almost leaned against Yu Jie. Yu Jie brought her back. The gold bracelet was placed on the table. Xiao Wanru looked at it thoughtfully. "Your Highness, is there anything wrong with this bracelet?" Yu Jie asked. She and Chu Lu had also looked at it for a long time, but they really couldn't see anything special about it. This bracelet was extremely simple and didn't even have a flower. Those who didn't know might think it was a small copper bracelet. It was really too inconspicuous. Although they were two maids, Xiao Wanru had rewarded them with a lot of things, and they also had gold bracelets in their hands. Compared with the gold bracelet in front of them, their gold bracelets were not only bigger, but also more beautiful and delicate. They were not as inconspicuous as the one in front of them. This bracelet has just been cast not long ago. The gold color is very good, but it is a little thin and simple. Xiao Wanru's eyes still fell on the gold bracelet. She had a strange sense of familiarity with it, as if she had seen something similar, but she couldn't remember it at the moment. "Your Highness, is such a gold bracelet newly cast? Could it be that you made a mistake? The original one must be so ugly that you thought of casting this one," Yu Jie said disapprovingly. She didn't think there was a bracelet more ugly than this one. Although the pure color of the gold was very good, it was such a waste of such good gold. "Your Highness, could it be recast from other utensils?" Chu Lu thought of another aspect and said. Xiao Wanru reached out to pick up the bracelet, shook it twice between her fingers and said softly, "It's also possible. Who dropped it or buried it there on purpose?" "Your Highness, rest assured. When I entered the door just now, I had whispered to Nanayu. Nanny Yu is going to keep an eye on it now, Yu Jie said. As soon as she entered the door just now, she went to find Nanny Yu and told her about it. Nanny Yu went to keep an eye on it in person. Your Highness, don't you also have a pair of such simple bracelets? Chu Li's eyes suddenly lit up and she said, I also have one? Xiao Wanru was slightly stunned and immediately remembered that no wonder she looked so familiar before. It turned out that she really had a pair of bamboo slips. When she was in Huaguang Temple, Chu Luchen had given her a pair of bamboo slips. A single gold bracelet. Go and get it, Xiao Wanru said. Chu Lu went to the bottom of the dressing table and took out a box. When she opened it, there was a pair of gold bracelets in it. The thick and simple gold bracelets gave a sense of sincerity. Without any pattern, they were solid and rough, heavy and heavy. They couldn't be worn at all and were only suitable for collection. Xiao Wanru picked up the heavy gold bracelet given to her by Chu Luchen with one hand and the thin gold bracelet with the other. They were both solid. One was broad and thick, while the other was small and thin. But the color of the two was almost the same. This meant that the gold purity of the two was almost the same. Or it could be considered that such solid gold bracelets could be recast and at least a dozen pairs of small gold bracelets could be recast. Your Highness, how did you guess that this small gold bracelet was recast? Yu Jie suddenly asked. The gold color is very new and has been polished. Although it has been dusty, the parts that have been cleaned are still very new, Xiao Wanru said with a slight frown. Bring her in. Yu Jie answered and left, and then brought in the little maid, who was trembling with fear. Your Highness, please spare me. The little maid was so scared that her face turned pale. As soon as she entered the room, her legs went soft, and she plopped to the ground and begged. Are you a child of this mansion? Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered twice and asked. The little maid only felt that the princess in front of her seemed to know everything, so she didn't dare to hide it. She nodded repeatedly and said, Your Highness, I'm a child of this mansion. My mother is in charge of the flowers and trees in that place, so I help her take care of those flowers and trees. Is your mother the Lady Wang who is in charge of the flowers and trees over there? Chu Lu, who knew a lot about the affairs in the mansion, asked in surprise after thinking for a while, and then looked the little maid up and down. Yes, my mother is the Lady Wang. If you don't believe me, you can ask my mother to come here and ask her about it. The little maid said what she wanted to say at this time and didn't dare to talk nonsense anymore. Should your name be Qinglian? Chu Lu asked again with a strange look. Yes, my name is Qinglian. Sister Chu Lu, you know me, right? The little maid said anxiously. Many people in the inner courtyard knew the principal maids who followed the princess. Even if they hadn't dealt with them before, they had seen them from a distance. Xiao Wanru bowed respectfully and said, Your Highness, this servant girl should be called Qinglian. She is the daughter of the Lady Wang who is in charge of the flowers and trees. The Lady Wang told me before that she couldn't take care of the flowers and trees alone, so she wanted her daughter to help her. She said that she was an inferior servant girl who was in charge of sweeping. Your mother was busy before. Why can't she be busy now? Xiao Wanru asked curiously. She was busy at first, but recently the mansion sent a few precious peonies and planted them in my mother's place. Those peonies are too precious. My mother is afraid that she can't take care of them all at once, so she asked my sister to transfer me here. In this way, my mother can spare more time to take care of those precious peonies. There are new peonies in the mansion? Xiao Wanru rolled her watery eyes and asked. I don't know about it either. I'll ask about it later, Chu Lu said. Since it's all right, I will let you go. But what are you going to say when you go back? Xiao Wanru asked meaningfully with a smile. Chapter 1060. The princess left the gold bracelet. A few days ago, the Imperial guards came to investigate and said that there were remnants of the former dynasty. Now there is such a strange gold bracelet. Yu Jie said with a smile. The servant girl was so frightened that she curled into a ball. She quickly said, Wang Fei, this servant didn't see anything and doesn't know anything. This servant was just walking through the bushes and saw Wang Fei and the two elder sisters. I was so frightened that I hid. I don't know anything else. You can leave now. Xiao Wenru smiled softly. Yes, I'll leave now. I'll leave now, the little maid hurriedly said. After kowtowing to Xiao Wenru a few more times, she got up and was about to run out. Wait a minute. Chu Lu stopped her. Sister Chu Lu, what else can I do for you? The little maid wiped the cold sweat on her head and said timidly. If someone keeps asking about this matter in the future, Sister Chu Lu, don't worry. If someone keeps asking about this matter, I will definitely report it to you. The little maid hurriedly expressed her loyalty. It was a capital crime to involve the remnants of the former dynasty. Not only she, but also her whole family might be implicated. Although the little maid was not old, everyone in the prince's mansion had some experience. She knew that this kind of thing was the most fatal. Whoever got involved in this kind of thing would be unlucky. The best way was to stay away from it. Even if she couldn't stay away for fun, she had to let the host know that she was innocent. The maid had been so glad that she had picked up a bracelet before, but now she felt so unlucky. Why did she go to that place at that time? Why did she see the bracelet? She was so obsessed that she even wanted to hide it secretly. At that time, she should have presented the gold bracelet directly to the princess. Seeing that the little maid was very tactful and seemed to be smart, Chu Lu didn't embarrass her this time and let her leave with a smile. After the little maid left, Chu Lu returned again. In the room, Xiao Wenru was still comparing the two bracelets. The more she looked at them, the more she felt that they were made of the same gold. At that time, after Chu Luchan gave her such a pair of gold bracelets, there was no more news. She didn't know if what happened today had something to do with it at that time. Now Chu Luchan was not around. Put away the bracelets first and wait for the prince to come back. Xiao Wenru ordered. This matter didn't seem simple, or perhaps it wasn't something she could do. She had always been self-aware, and this was a time of turbulence, so she couldn't do anything rash. It was the right thing to do to wait for Chu Luchan to return to the capital city. He could not ruin Chu Liuchen's big plan because of some small things. He was not clear about the matter, and if he rashly intervened, it would easily spoil things. This was no longer a matter of the backyard. Sure enough, when Nanny Yu came to report, she said that she had been watching there for about 2 hours, but she didn't see anyone go to that place. Only a few servant girls and old maids passed by, but no one deliberately went there. Everything seemed to be normal. The only abnormal thing was the bracelet, but it was in Xiao Wenru's hand now. After making up her mind, Xiao Wenru carefully picked up the painting posted by Maple Leaf again. The painting was basically done. Autumn Forest Lady Painting. The deep and light maple leaves decorated the maple leaves under the setting sun, as well as the fluttering skirts and ribbons of women. Only in the key places, Xiao Wenru used lines. After a little drawing, the rest of the places were trimmed into different shapes with maple leaves. There was a kind of natural charm in the softness and beauty. Some lines at the corners of the clothes had more deep marks that couldn't be drawn with a brush. It looked more natural and more charming. Your Highness, does the Empress Dowager really like this kind of painting made of maple leaves? Yu Jie, who was carefully serving beside her, couldn't help asking at this time. She had been to the palace many times, but she had never heard that the Empress Dowager had such a hobby. The Empress Dowager likes it very much. Xiao Wenru nodded, took 2 steps back, and looked at the overall pattern of the painting. She looked lazy, but a trace of coldness flashed in her eyes. In the last life, it was said that the disaster on the Empress Dowager's birthday was caused by a painting made of maple leaves. She couldn't find out the details with her identity at that time. She only said that there were many rumors outside. The Empress Dowager fell ill and was bedridden. Then the power in the hands of the Empress was taken away and she was put under house arrest. There was a big change in the palace, and many people died in the catastrophe there. As for the rebellion of Prince Zhou in the end, this matter should also be an important cause. The original status of the legitimate son was threatened by the Empress's accident, so Prince Zhou also took a risk. This matter originally had nothing to do with her, but after hearing that Prince Chen was also implicated, she reached out and rubbed her head. She couldn't remember how exactly he was implicated, or she didn't know at all. She only knew that this matter was very important. She didn't know where the Empress Dowager's maple leaf painting came from, but this time she tried to destroy that painting and then make up for it with her own painting. With the Empress Dowager's love for Chu Luchin and her painting, she shouldn't punish her too heavily for accidentally destroying this painting. But who on earth gave this painting to her? Why did she know that the painting was ruined, but she didn't know where it came from? It seemed that the Emperor and the Empress Dowager didn't punish anyone. After such a big thing happened, even if the 9 generations of the Empress Dowager's family were not killed, she would definitely not be well. Who was it that caused such a huge disaster and was still alive and well? While Xiao Wanru was guessing, Chu Luchin suddenly decided to speed up. A few days ago, they set off when the sun was high in the sky. Before sunset they had to rest. Prince Chen was not feeling well, so he stopped all reactions. However, something was obviously wrong in the past 2 days. Not only did they speed up by half, but they also got up before dawn in the morning. When they couldn't find a place in the middle of the night, they made do in the wild and pitched a few tents. Such a rapid march made all the people in the team dizzy. At first, Princess Yuyen of the Su Kingdom came to Prince Chen from time to time, but now she didn't have the strength to dress up and go out. While the carriage was moving, someone was sent to call Chu Qing over. The Su Kingdom didn't have as many rules as the Dongtsang Kingdom. Moreover, in everyone's mind, the relationship between the two of them had long been unclear. It was not a big deal for Princess Yuyen to call Chu Qing to the carriage to talk. When they entered the capital city, the relationship between them would be open. As soon as Chu Qing sat down in the carriage, Princess Yuyen said unhappily, "What on earth does your Prince Chen want to do?" She was charming. Although she was not as delicate as Princess Yutao, she was more gentle and charming than a woman. In the Su Kingdom, there were more people who wanted to marry Princess Yuyen than Yutao. There were more people in the Su Kingdom who wanted to marry Princess Yutao. She had thought that after marrying Princess Yutao, the Su Kingdom would be the world of her mother's. She didn't expect that she would be with Chu Qing. As long as she thought of this, Princess Yuyen was very angry. When Chu Qing came in, he didn't give him a good look, and she disliked him very much. Although Chu Qing was handsome, he was much worse than Chu Luchin. When the two of them stood together, everyone would turn their eyes to Chu Luchin. Princess Yuyen had originally accepted her fate, but now she was a little reluctant. Anyway, she and Chu Qing didn't really have anything to do with each other. It didn't matter if they just lay together in disheveled clothes. She was the princess of the Su Kingdom, which was enough to cover up her slight shortcomings. Moreover, she thought that she was charming and much more feminine than Princess Yutao. How could she not be able to conquer Chu Luchin? Unfortunately, after a while, Chu Luchin didn't move at all. She felt very aggrieved. She had never suffered such a big loss in the hands of a man. No matter how she tempted him, Prince Chen looked at her as if she was a piece of wood, without any affection. She couldn't even get close to him, let alone anything else. Now, she had asked Chu Luchin about the rapid march, but Chu Luchin just smiled faintly and only said that he was not in good health. No matter what she asked, he ignored her and sent a eunuch to talk to her. Princess Yuyen couldn't get anything out of him, so she could only ask someone to summon Chu Qing. When she saw Chu Qing, she was angry. If it weren't for Chu Qing, she would still be in the Su Kingdom. As the most beautiful princess in men's hearts, how could she follow him to the capital of the Dongtsang Kingdom? Maybe he wants to return to the capital as soon as possible. The birthday of Imperial grandmother is coming. Chu Qing said vaguely. It was the birthday of the Empress Dowager, and the whole country would celebrate it. In fact, he also wanted to go back early and send a birthday gift. When Chu Luchin walked slowly before, he was anxious. Although he was a little tired now, it seemed that it was still possible to reach the capital before the birthday. Why don't you ask clearly? Aren't you Commander Prince Qing? You are Prince Chen's brother. What can't you say? Princess Yuyen raised her eyebrows high and said coldly. Prince Chen is not the same as me. There were no outsiders here, so Chu Qing said unhappily with a straight face. In his opinion, Princess Yuyen was destined to be his, so there was no need to be as respectful and polite as before. Moreover, they had already entered the border of the Dongtsang Kingdom, So he was the host. When you have nothing to do, don't get close to Chu Luchin. You are his sister-in-law. What do you look like if you always get close to Chu Luchin? It's not nice to talk to him. Chu Qing lectured Princess Yuyen again. Of course, he was not very satisfied with marrying Princess Yuyen. It could be said that he had never thought of marrying the princess of the Su kingdom. It was he who suggested marrying Princess Yu Tao to Chu Luchin to Princess Yuyen's mother. He did not expect that in the end, Princess Yu Tao would turn the tables and force him to marry Princess Yun. With Princess Yuyen, it was difficult for him to explain some things, especially to his former fiancée. Therefore, Chu Qing was also in a bad mood on the way. Now that he had come here, the knot in his heart was slowly undone. If he really could not do it, he would make the two co-wives. Princess Yuyen was of noble status, so she would naturally be the main wife. It was not a disgrace to her to be the original co-wife. Slap. A heavy slap in the face made Chu Qing's eyes widen. He looked at Princess Yuyen, who frowned in front of him. Chapter 1061. Are you crazy? Chu Qing glared at Princess Yuyen and said, Am I crazy? Are you crazy? How dare you scold me like this? Do you really think I am willing to marry such a useless person like you? Princess Yuyen faintly raised her eyebrows, revealing some anger. If it weren't for your uselessness, I wouldn't have ended up in this state. Back then, it was clearly you and Mother who planned to have me pass on the message. How did it become my problem? The more Princess Yuyen thought about it, the angrier she became. This matter actually had nothing to do with her before. She was just a messenger. How did it end up with her going to the kingdom of Dongsong to make peace with Chu Qing? Yuyen, you are a princess who is going to make peace. Can you still go back now? Chu Qing also became angry. He put down his hand covering his face and said coldly, You will only be Commandery Prince Qing's woman in the future. You can't still think about Prince Qin, can you? In fact, Princess Qin is thousands of times more beautiful than you. You don't even deserve to carry her shoes. After saying that, Chu Qing looked Princess Yuyen up and down, as if he was examining a not-so-beautiful commodity. Princess Yuyen was both embarrassed and angry. Her face was completely red and she reached out her hand again, but this time, her hand was grabbed by Chu Qing. Princess Yuyen, please conduct yourself with dignity. If you still want to live well, this prince will treat you well for the sake of your imperial mother. If you continue to cause trouble without reason, this prince will not be polite. The matter of you marrying this prince is a matter between the two countries. You have to marry me whether you want to or not. After saying that, he shook off Princess Yuyen's hand hard and turned to get out of the carriage. There was silence in the carriage for a while, and then Princess Yuyen's cry came out. The palace maid who followed her was frightened and hid aside, not daring to move. Now she hurried to persuade her, but she was also slapped several times. In the carriage in front, Princess Yu Tao laughed happily. It would be good if Yuyen and Chu Qing fought. She wanted them to fight and scold every day, so that they could plot against her. If it were not for Prince Chen's reminder, she would almost be forced to do nothing at that time. Now it was really good, really good. Even if she had to go to the kingdom of East Song, it would be better than Yuyen marrying Chu Qing. Chu Qing was a treacherous person. Back in the Su kingdom, people thought that he would be forced to marry Princess Yuyen and would be at a disadvantage. It was really pitiful. But now, it seemed like it was a good thing. This pair, together, was indeed a match made in heaven, a pair made in heaven. Princess Yu Tao was secretly humming a tune in the front carriage. In the carriage at the front, Chu Luchin leaned on the soft couch, picked up a cup of tea in front of the table gracefully, took a sip, and put it down slowly. His carriage was very spacious, and it was covered with thick cushions. The journey was very smooth, and the water in the cup only rippled slightly. Master, there is a quarrel in the back. Xiao Xuanzi climbed up from the carriage and reported with a smile. Not bad, this is just the beginning. Chu Liuchen's delicate lips curled up, and he looked lazy. He was not surprised by this. At first glance, he could tell that this Princess Yuyen was a restless woman. She should not have intended to marry Chu Qing at that time, and there should be other reasons for her to be close to Chu Qing. Chu Qing seemed to be kind and had a good character, but in fact, there was always ambition in his eyes, which was even no less than that of Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou. Chu Luchun was also curious about what kind of confidence supported his ambition. Even if there was no successor, it was impossible for his uncle to pass the throne to him. As a powerless little prince, how could he seize the world? What did he rely on to support his ambition? Since he had nothing to do, he was willing to see what exactly happened. He wanted to see how Chu Qing would realize his ambition, and it was even to the extent that he was willing to lend Chu Qing a hand so that Chu Qing could go further and get closer to the throne. Master, Ningyuan Army General asked if you would like to continue the journey today. Do you want to take a rest at this time? Xiao Xuanzi smiled. Of course, he knew his master's bad taste, so he stopped asking about this topic. At present, the matter between Commandery Prince Qing and Princess Yu Yan had just begun, and he was just a little eunuch following his master to watch the fun. He had to deal with his own affairs first and then go to watch the fun. Continue the journey. While I'm not here, they dare to bully my princess. Chu Liuchun's face turned cold, and the people around him immediately felt cold. The news from the capital city had come. Even if Xiao Wanru did not explain it in detail, it was clear at a glance what the truth was after the connection. They took advantage of his absence to bring the matter to Prince Chen's mansion. He had to reason with them. Yes, I know. I'll go and tell Ningyuan Army General now. Xiao Xuanzi nodded repeatedly. Since something was going to happen to the princess, how could the prince not be anxious? It seemed that the journey would be more urgent. He didn't know who was so ignorant in the capital city that they actually schemed against the prince and the princess. Wanted the prince to marry Princess Yu Tao? These people really thought that the prince was the kind of person who could be manipulated by them. Thinking of the news from the capital city, Xiao Xuanzi also had a lingering fear. If something really happened to the princess this time, the capital city would immediately be in a bloody storm. Not to mention the capital city, even the Imperial palace would be the same. No one could stop the prince, even concubine Lan in the Imperial palace. Thinking of this, Xiao Xuanzi's heart trembled. He hurriedly got out of the car and went to Ningyuan Army General, hoping that there would be no more schemes against the princess or the prince's mansion in the capital city. These people didn't understand the status of the princess in the prince's heart. For so many years, the prince didn't even take care of his own health. Since he had the prince took good care of his health. It could be said that with the princess, there was the current prince. The princess slowly pulled the prince up from the darkest abyss. If something happened to the princess, Xiao Xuanzi didn't dare to think about it. It was better to go to Ningyuan Army General first. Passing by Princess Yu Yan's carriage behind, Xiao Xuanzi heard the sudden loud cry. He shook his head. The prince only had the princess in his heart. No matter how happy and pitiful Princess Yu Yan was, it would not arouse the prince's feelings at all. Even if she cried to him, the prince wouldn't care. Hearing Xiao Xuanzi conveyed Chu Liuchun's feelings, Qin Huaiyong helplessly asked people to tighten the horses and continued to move forward. Seeing that the prince didn't intend to rest, he also accompanied him. He glanced at Commandery Prince Qing who was sitting on the horse with him, and there was a little sympathy in his eyes. In his eyes, Princess Yu Yan's behavior these days was obviously not a good person. Chu Qing married an ancestor, and it was an ancestor who was restless in the house. But it was also Chu Qing's fault. He had been quite close to Princess Yu Yan before. Since they met, they seemed to have fallen in love at first sight. Now that things had come to this, he had brought this upon himself. Perhaps it was Princess Yu Tao's plot, but so what? Chu Qing had behaved inappropriately and had an ambiguous relationship with Princess Yu Yan for a long time. Prince Chen's mansion, which had been closed for a few days, finally opened its gate. A large carriage drove out of Prince Chen's mansion. Many spies who paid attention to Prince Chen's mansion immediately reported to their respective masters. Princess Chen went out of the mansion. This large carriage belonged to Princess Chen. It was said that it was specially customized by Prince Chen for Princess Chen. As expected, Princess Chen was fine. She had really fallen ill before. After getting the exact news, all the forces ordered their subordinates not to act rashly and to wait and see. The previous incident had attracted the attention of the emperor, so all the forces did not dare to act rashly in Prince Chen's mansion. Xiao Wanru went to Butterfly Clothing Shop, which she hadn't been to for a long time. After entering Nanny Dong's accounting room, she took off her curtain hat. Nanny Dong hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. "Nanny Dong, have you been busy these days?" Xiao Wanru asked with a smile. She had been very careful because she was afraid that others would know what had happened in Butterfly Clothing Shop. Well, he still sends someone here from time to time. Now he either keeps an eye on me or specially sends some things here. Nanny Dong sighed and looked very conflicted. "Nanny Dong, do you want to be with him?" Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and said calmly. "I don't want to be with him anymore. Wasn't it enough for me to be like this at that time?" But he actually found Xiao. Wei Dahai found Xiao. Nanny Dong frowned more and more. Xiao is soft-hearted and actually thinks that he is pitiful. The more Nanny Dong thought about it, the angrier she became. It was obvious that Wei Dahai had wronged her and her mother, but now Xiao thought that she was hard-hearted and couldn't tolerate Wei Dahai's legal wife, making it seem that she was unfaithful. Thinking of Xiao's words, Nanny Dong's eyes turned red. She had raised Xiao for so many years, and no one could understand the hardships she had gone through during this period. She only hoped that her daughter would grow up well, but she didn't expect that Xiao didn't understand her. She even cried and said that she was narrow-minded and couldn't tolerate others. She also blamed her for saying that Xiao was a good daughter of an official, but she had wandered outside with her and lived so many hard days. Xiao wants to recognize Wei Dahai? Xiao Wanru knew what Nanny Dong meant as soon as she saw her appearance. She sighed secretly in her heart. When Dong Xiao had that kind of thing, it could be seen that Dong Xiao was not a smart girl. Moreover, she was soft-hearted and easily believed others' words, not to mention that the person in front of her was her biological father. However, she didn't expect that because of this biological father who didn't recognize them before, she had hurt the heart of her biological mother, who really loved her dearly. Wei Dahai seemed to be a man of means. When the hard way failed, he used the soft way, and he directly targeted his biological daughter, Dong Xiao. Xiao Wanru slightly pursed her lips as she used Dong Xiao to force Nanny Dong to marry into the Wei's mansion. She had an intuition that Nanny Dong was not the ultimate goal. "Nanny Dong, do you think that Wei Dahai really wants to treat you well?" Xiao Wanru smiled in a low voice and asked leisurely. Now it was up to Nanny Dong to decide what to do. Chapter 1062. Qian. The latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess was updated as soon as possible. "Your Highness, I don't think Wei Dahai is so kind." Madame Dong gritted her teeth and said. She wished Wei Dahai would die, but she had to take Xiao's thoughts into consideration. He obviously wants this Butterfly Clothing Shop. Why do you think so? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows, tilted her head and asked in a charming tone. "Your Highness, think about it. If he really wants me, he wouldn't have cared about me at the beginning. Now so many years have passed, how could he think of me again? As for Xiao, it's even more impossible. He doesn't lack a daughter or a son. Xiao is not outstanding and married into an ordinary family, so there's nothing for him to covet. I think it's this shop that makes him jealous." Madame Dong analyzed rationally. "And why did his madam agree to let me enter the Wei's mansion? If it weren't for interests, she wouldn't have agreed. I've seen this madam before, and she is not a gentle and obedient woman. Wei Dahai seems to listen to her a lot. There must be a great benefit for her to tolerate me. I don't have anything else, but this shop may be attractive to them. What do you think we should do, Madame Dong?" Xiao Wanru said with a calm smile. Madame Dong was indeed rational and knew what she wanted to do, but Dong Xiao was clingy and unclear. "If Xiao says it again, I'll give up the position of the shopkeeper of Butterfly Clothing Shop and say that this shop doesn't belong to me. Just say it and see what Wei Dahai says." Madame Dong said angrily. Thinking of her disappointing daughter, she was about to cry again. She had been wandering for half of her life, And she only had one daughter. She really cared about her daughter, but she didn't expect that her daughter was now full of Wei Dahai and wanted to go to the Wei's mansion to live the life of a Mississippi. She didn't think that even if she entered the Wei's mansion, she would have nothing to do with it. As a married woman, did she still want to rely on the Wei's mansion? Madam, do you think Xiao has already told Wei Dahai what happened behind the shop? Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes flickered and asked. No, this won't happen. Madame Dong shook her head decisively and said, Princess, don't worry. Xiao won't do that. I have repeatedly told Xiao not to tell anyone about this. If I tell anyone else, I may even get killed. Madame Dong had no choice but to threaten Dong Xiao for fear that she would accidentally ruin Xiao Wanru's plan. Xiao Wanru nodded and understood Nanny Dong's intention. She also knew that Dong Xiao was timid. After being scared by Nanny Dong, at least at this time, she had not told Wei Dahai the truth. Wei Dahai was a very unusual person. In the last life, Madame Dong should have entered the palace by relying on Wei Dahai's connections. She even brought her business to the Empress Dowager. It could be seen that Wei Dahai was not only a clever person, but also had deep connections. Hearing that Wei Dahai's background was not unusual, it was even more strange. How could he casually arrange people around the Empress Dowager? Or it could be said that someone around the Empress Dowager treated him very well. Xiao Wanru was more interested in another person, Mo Qiui. Mo Qiui, who had stayed in the Yuhui nunnery for 5 years, was said to be a member of the Yuhui nunnery and had been living in the Yuhui nunnery since then. Such a person should have been unknown, just like she had been in the Yuhui nunnery for so many years. However, at present, this person's identity had changed dramatically. First of all, this person became Wei Dahai's niece. 3 years ago, she was taken down the mountain and raised in the Wei's mansion. What was more surprising was that Chu Qing's fiancé turned out to be her. This was something that no one had expected. Xiao Wanru got the news from Chu Luchen. Hearing this news, she could hardly believe it. Mo Qiui turned out to be Mo Qiui. Who would have thought that an orphan girl raised in the Yuhui nunnery without parents would become Chu Qing's fiancé? At that time, Chu Qing refused to marry Xiao Nu for this reason. The emperor didn't agree at first, but for some reason, he agreed later. Although Chu Qing's identity was awkward, he was still the son of the former emperor. If he married such an unknown princess, people would feel that he had mistreated the son of the former emperor. However, Chu Qing argued strongly, and in the end, it was left unsettled. Because the identity of the future commandery Prince Qing was too low, no one paid attention to it. If Xiao Wanru hadn't been with Mo Qiui in the Yuhui nunnery, she wouldn't have taken her seriously. Especially when Mo Qiui begged her grandma to take her down the mountain with a fellow villager, Xiao Wanru paid more attention to her. At that time, Xiao Wanru easily realized that there was no fellow villager at that time. It was obvious that Chu Qing was going to come down the mountain and appear in front of everyone. If it was caused by her grandma, the emperor would definitely abandon her grandma. Although Xiao Wanru wasn't clear about the grudge between the emperor and the former emperor, she felt that the emperor would definitely not be willing to see the sons of the former emperor emerge one after another. Chu Luchen had no choice. He was born early and was known to the world. As for other people, the emperor didn't intend to recognize them at all. Although Chu Qing was not a big deal, the emperor obviously didn't want to mention the past again. It was better for Chu Qing not to appear in front of the world. Mo Qiui, who had schemed against her grandma in such a way, was really not like an ordinary woman. No matter how she looked at it, it seemed to be mysterious. Did it mean that Mo Qiui had an ulterior motive when she came to the Yuhui nunnery? At that time, she was still young and couldn't have arranged such a thing by herself. In that case, there must be someone behind her. Or it could be said that there was someone behind Chu Qing. Was this person Wei Dahai? Xiao Wanru couldn't figure it out at the moment. She was not in a hurry because Chu Luchen would deal with this kind of thing by himself. Now it seemed that Wei Dahai couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to get involved in her butterfly clothing shop. Nanny Dong, you can give me the shop. Xiao Wanru suggested. Nanny Dong didn't understand for a moment and looked at Xiao Wanru in a daze. Since the Wei's mansion wants you to be a co-wife, You can give me the shop and then marry into the Wei's mansion. In this way, Xiao won't blame you, right? Xiao Wanru said more clearly with a smile. Nanny Dong's face changed and she knelt down with a plop. Your Highness, I don't want to marry into the Wei's mansion. I don't want to marry Wei Dahai, the heartless man, and I don't want Xiao to be harmed. The Wei's mansion was obviously a tiger's den. Only Xiao thought it was a rich den. Nanny Dong, get up first and talk, Xiao Wanru said softly. Yu Jia went over and helped Nanny Dong up. Your Highness, what do you mean? Nanny Dong stood up, thought for a while, and asked hesitantly, make a big fuss first and then see Wei Dahai's reaction, or Wei Dahai's wife's reaction? Nanny Dong, if you spread the news that you want to transfer the shop to me, will Wei Dahai react? Xiao Wanru asked with a deep look in her eyes. Her long eyelashes blocked a trace of deepness in her eyes, making her look harmless and gentle. If I spread the news that I want to transfer the shop to you, Your Highness, Wei Dahai will definitely not sit still. Nanny Dong was a smart person. She immediately understood the meaning of Xiao Wanru's words and said with joy, he will definitely make me not transfer the shop, or even if I transfer the shop, I will transfer it to the person he introduced. If the shop is gone, he will have no desire for me. At that time, Xiao can see clearly what kind of person he is. At the mention of Dong Xiao, Madame Dong was angry and hurt. That silly girl really thought that she had found a good father. She tried to persuade her again and even thought that her husband was not good. As the daughter of an official, she could have married a better man. But she just wanted to find a better man, divorce him, and marry another young master from a rich family. Thinking of Xiao Er's things, Nanny Dong wanted to bite Wei Dahai to death. Can you do it, Nanny Dong? Xiao Wanru asked with a smile. She had to solve the problem of butterfly clothing shop. Chu Luiyue and Infanta Yuan An's people had their eyes on it. She was afraid that they would make trouble again, so she simply made it public and bought it in her name. In this way, Nanny Dong would not be able to deal with these people overtly and covertly. Before she got married, it was not convenient for her to run her own shop. Now that she was Princess Chin, it was not a big deal even if she asked someone to run the shop in person. Don't worry, Your Highness. I can do it. Nanny Dong nodded hard and was very grateful. At this time, she could only take drastic measures. Otherwise, Wei Dahai would never stop. As long as she thought that it was agreed by Wei Dahai's wife, Nanny Dong was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. How shameless the couple was. It was obvious that they coveted butterfly clothing shop, but they pretended to be deeply in love with each other, which was really disgusting. Fortunately, this shop belonged to the princess, and fortunately, the princess could always stand behind her and support her. When Xiao Wanru came out of the shopkeeper's room, the two servant girls behind her looked very angry. Although Nanny Dong sent her to the door of the accounting room and treated her like those noble madams and misses in the past, the two servant girls still looked very unhappy. Chu Lu snorted coldly and helped Xiao Wanru to leave first. No one could see Xiao Wanru's face clearly under the curtain hat, but everyone could see Chu Li's face clearly. When they entered the door and saw the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion just now, many people had guessed that the person in front of them was Princess Chen. Princess Chen, who had been keeping a low profile to recuperate in the mansion, attracted many people's attention at this time when they saw the two servant girls acting like this. They secretly guessed whether the shopkeeper of Butterfly Clothing Shop had offended Princess Chen. She could not be offended. When Infanta Yuan and Princess Chen had an affair before, she seemed to be here. At that time, both Infanta Yuan and her brother had suffered a loss. A small shopkeeper could not compare with Infanta Yuan. What was going on? Chapter 1063. Think about it. It's your great fortune that our princess likes your shop, Yujia said, walking at the end. Yujia walked at the end. After a few steps, she turned around and snorted at Madame Dong, who was smiling. She raised her head high and said, if it weren't for her, our princess wouldn't be so polite. After that, she turned around and left. Her words were vague, and everyone looked at each other. At this time, no one dared to rush out to defend her, so they just watched the fun. They saw the smile on Nanny Dong's face turn into bitterness. Looking at Princess Chen's back, she turned around with a heavy body. In the afternoon, the shop assistants in Butterfly Clothing Shop were busy. They not only had to receive guests, but also had to count their belongings. They were very busy. Some guests wondered why they were counting these things at the end of the year. The assistants said that it was the shopkeeper's order. It seemed that they were going to close the shop. Nanny Dong sat in the accounting room and didn't come out. No one knew what she was doing inside. But it seemed that she was in a bad mood. She should be checking the account books, and of course, she might cry sadly. It should have something to do with Princess Chin in the morning, right? Even the assistants were talking about it in private. After hearing the news, Dong Xiu hurried back to Butterfly Clothing Shop. She was not married far away from Butterfly Clothing Shop. When she arrived at Butterfly Clothing Shop, she did not ask the waiter to lead the way. Instead, she knocked on the door of the accounting room. Nanny Dong opened the door. She looked a little tired and didn't look well. "Mother, what happened? Did Princess Chin say anything?" Dong Xiu said anxiously and flustered. She was very afraid of Xiao Wanru. Princess Chin, who was several years younger than her, had scared her 3 years ago. Therefore, Dong Xiu had never dared to disobey Princess Chen's orders. But she also knew that her mother's Butterfly Clothing Shop originally belonged to Princess Chin. Why did Princess Chin come to Butterfly Clothing Shop to make trouble? If she wanted an explanation for what happened with Infanta Yuan, and that day, wasn't Princess Chin the owner of Dai Chen? What explanation did she want? Madame Dong let Dong Xiu in and closed the door again. She turned around and sat behind the desk. She looked at Dong Xiu and sighed heavily. She did not answer Dong Xiu's question, but asked, "Xiu, do you really want me to enter the Wei mansion?" "Mother, you are the first wife. Why can't you marry into the Wei mansion?" Dong Xiu asked in confusion. She really could not understand her mother. "First wife? Who will admit it?" Madame Dong raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically. "My father will admit it. He said that you are the only one in his heart. At that time, he had no choice but to let you be his concubine first. When the time is right, he will make you his wife. But why did you just leave?" Dong Xiu wondered why her mother couldn't bear it for a while. "So, he can only take me as his concubine now?" Madame Dong sneered. "Father said that he would marry you as his co-wife. This is his compensation for all these years. Even after so many years, he has been thinking about us. Mother, as long as you agree, we can reunite. Father looks very pitiful alone. Besides, he has worked so hard for so long for you and me. If we don't go back, how sad he will be." Dong Xiu increasingly disagreed with Madame Dong's idea. So many years had passed, and the past had long been forgotten. Why did her mother still hold on to such a thing? She could only say that no one could blame anyone for this kind of accident. Wei Dahai is pitiful? Madame Dong was so angry that her eyes turned red. What did Wei Dahai say to Xiu? How could she misunderstand him like this? He was forcing her to agree. If she didn't agree, even her only daughter would not understand her. Mother, Dong Xiu still wanted to persuade her, but Madame Dong had reached out and stopped her. "Don't say anything. Just listen to him later. He is not pitiful. He will come later." "Yes, father always cares about you," Dong Xiu said naturally. "He doesn't care about me. He cares about this shop." Madame Dong unceremoniously lifted the veil. "If it weren't for this Butterfly Clothing Shop, do you think he would look at us more? Even if we begged in his house, he would give us 2 steamed buns at most." Madame Dong had seen through Wei Dahai's character. "Mother, how can you say that to father?" Dong Xiu's tears fell down. She wiped her tears with a handkerchief. "Mother, even if you don't understand father, you shouldn't say that. It's not easy for father to find us for so many years. There are so many people. How can he find us? Besides, we didn't go to the capital city before. We went to Jiangzhou." Dong Xiu felt wronged for her father and felt that Madame Dong was really unreasonable. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and the two people inside immediately stopped talking. Madame Dong pointed to a large screen behind the chair and said, "Go sit in the back and listen to your good father's deal with me. Think about whether he is interested in us or the interests behind us." Dong Xiu wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and went inside unconvinced. Even if she listened, so what? Her father would not think so. It was her mother's fault. After Dong Xiu sat down on the chair prepared behind the screen, Madame Dong calmed down and went to open the door. As soon as the door opened, Wei Dehai's concerned face appeared behind the door. During this time, Wei Dehai sent people to deliver things from time to time, and sometimes he came in person. All the restaurants in the shop knew that Lord Wei had an unusual relationship with Madame Dong, so no one stopped him and let him go directly to Madame Dong's door. As soon as Wei Dehai saw Madame Dong's bad face, he immediately asked with concern, "Madame Ming, what happened?" Madame Dong turned around and entered the door, ignoring him. Wei Dehai followed them into the room and purposely closed the door. Madame Dong had already sat down behind the desk. There were several account books on the desk. Some were open and some were not. It could be seen that Madame Dong had been sorting out the account books before. "What's wrong? Could it be that Princess Chen really made things difficult for you?" Wei Dehai asked with concern again. He picked up an account book and flipped through it. The more he flipped through it, the happier he was. The shop had made a lot of profits. At the moment he was short of money. It was great to have such a sum of money in his account. "I want to give this shop to Princess Chen," Madame Dong said with a straight face, without looking at Wei Dehai. Wei Dehai stopped flipping through the account books and asked in surprise, "Why?" Madame Dong lowered her head and said with a depressed look, "Infanta Yuan and Princess Chen had a dispute here before. It's been a long time. I thought it was over. I didn't expect that Princess Chen wouldn't let it go. She asked me to give her an explanation and let me give this shop to her. It could be seen that she was in a bad mood. Princess Chen has gone too far." Wei Dehai slammed his hand on the table and said angrily, "Even if she is Princess Chen, so what? She can't snatch my shop by force," he said angrily. After that, he comforted Madame Dong, "Don't be afraid. I'll take care of it for you." "How can you take care of it? She is Princess Chen." Obviously, Madame Dong didn't believe him and said angrily. Wei Dehai stood up and paced around the room a few times. It happened so unexpectedly that he was overwhelmed for a while. If it were an ordinary official's wife, it would not be a big deal. But the problem was that this was Prince Chen's wife. Prince Chen was a very protective person. Even Infanta Yuan had suffered a loss, let alone him. Wei Dehai deeply felt that he didn't have enough power at the moment. "I'll sort out the account books and count the property. Then I'll give it to Princess Chen," Madame Dong said. "How much did she pay?" Wei Dehai asked subconsciously. 20,000 taels of silver." Madame Dong lowered her head more and more, and she looked listless. "What? Only 20,000 taels of silver? This shop's business is so good, but she only gave 20,000 taels of silver. Prince Chen's mansion has gone too far." Wei Dehai was furious and distressed. In his opinion, Madame Dong's money was his money. At this time, Princess Chen took advantage of her, which was like cutting off his flesh. He felt distressed no matter how he thought about it. No, he couldn't watch Madame Dong suffer such a loss. He rolled his eyes and suddenly thought of an idea. He returned to the chair and sat down. "Madame Ming, you can tell Princess Chen that this shop is not yours, but mine. Transfer it to my name. Since you are the shopkeeper I invited, then Princess Chen can't say anything about it." "Say that this shop is yours?" Madame Dong frowned and looked up at Wei Dehai with unclear meaning. Wei Dehai thought it was a good idea, so he immediately persuaded, "You only need to go to the Yamen now and transfer this shop to my name. After you marry into my family and become my wife, I'll let someone else take charge of the shop again. Don't you think it's a good idea?" The more Wei Dehai said, the more feasible he felt it was, and his eyes lit up. In this way, Princess Chen would not be able to rob his shop anymore. After all, robbing an ordinary shop like Madame Dong was different from robbing his own shop. No matter how arrogant Princess Chen was, she would not do such a thing. As for whether Madame Dong wanted to enter the mansion after the shop was transferred to her name, it was up to her. Anyway, he originally wanted this shop. With this shop that could make money, it would be more convenient for him to spend money. Thinking of this, Wei Dahai was full of smiles. Behind the screen, Dong Xiu nodded repeatedly as she listened, but now she also had some doubts. She was just soft-hearted, but she was not really stupid. What her father said was so strange. How could he do things like this? It was completely opposite to the passionate words he used to say in front of her. Could it be that what her mother said was right? For a moment, she felt so distressed that she twisted the handkerchief in her hand tightly, for fear that she would make any noise. Madame Dong said in a deep voice, "The shop is given to you as my dowry. After I marry into the mansion, will the dowry be returned to me? Do we have to make a notarization of these words in the yamen? If you don't admit it, what will happen?" Madame Dong said in a deep voice. Madame Dong said in a deep voice, "Madame Ming, after you marry me, you will be my wife. In the future, you will live a life of luxury. There is no need to make a clear distinction. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. There is no need to make a notarization. A woman's dowry is originally your own, so there is no need to make an explanation." Shilu, who was sitting in the back, felt her heart skip a beat, as if something had broken. Chapter 1064. Marry you? Then what about your original wife? Are you going to give up your position to me? Madame Dong sneered. If I'm just a concubine, I don't seem to need a dowry. Of course, a concubine didn't need a dowry. If the dowry was good, she just needed to carry it. If the dowry was bad, she just needed to carry a parcel. There was no need to be so particular, let alone a shop as a dowry. Wei Dahai's face darkened and he said unhappily, "Mrs. Ming, of course, Madam is still Madam. You are not an ordinary concubine. You are a co-wife. Xiu will also be a legitimate daughter in the mansion. A co-wife is also a wife. Naturally, she will marry into the mansion. Your dowry will be yours in the end. Do you think I will covet your dowry?" Wei Dahai's face darkened and he said unhappily, "Since it's still mine, we need to be fair, in case we can't make it clear in the future." Madame Dong didn't give in. It seemed that she wouldn't give in until Wei Dahai relented. "Mrs. Ming, why are you so stubborn? If you are like this, how can Madam let you enter the mansion as a co-wife?" Wei Dahai stamped his feet and said anxiously, "Your wife doesn't want to?" Madame Dong looked at him and said, "Didn't you say that your wife is very virtuous and wholeheartedly cares for you? She will like whatever you like, right?" Wei Dahai was stunned by this question. After a pause, he reluctantly explained, "At first, she only agreed to let you be a concubine. It was I who said that you still have a dowry, so it's not suitable for you to be a concubine. Then she relented. Mrs. Ming, you have to understand me. Although I want to marry you, I can't make the mansion restless and become a joke in the capital city. If I spoil my wife, I will be impeached by the censor." "Do you mean that I am a concubine?" Madame Dong smiled, and her eyes became colder and colder. "I don't mean that. I mean you have a dowry. How can you be a concubine?" Wei Dahai was annoyed by Madame Dong's pestering, but he had to coax her. Madame Dong interrupted him rudely, "That is to say, I can only marry into your mansion with this dowry. Without this dowry, I'm just a concubine." Wei Dahai's face turned red. He glared at Madame Dong with shame and anger, and his face darkened. "Madame Ming, this is the capital, not the small place where you used to live. To open a shop in the capital, money is not enough. If you don't have a strong background, you will be swallowed up by others sooner or later. Just like what happened to Prince Chen today. If you marry me, I have the right to protect you and your shop. Why don't you understand that?" Madame Dong said coldly, "Madame Ming, this is the capital, not the small place where you used to live." Behind the screen, Dong Xiu could no longer hold back her tears. She began to sob silently. What she really heard was completely different from what Wei Dahai had told her before. This was her so-called father. Sure enough, she was just a child brought up by her mother. She never knew she had a father, and she didn't want to have such a father. Madame Dong stood up, walked to the door, pulled it open, and said to the outside, "If I have to be swallowed up by others, I would rather be Prince Chen than meet a villain like you who cheats me on my marriage. Your Excellency Wei, please." Her voice was not low, and the people outside the accounting room all heard it. Many people looked into the room in surprise and saw Wei Dahai. Wei Dahai suddenly stood up and said angrily with a red face, Well, Madame Dong, you are so stubborn. Take care of yourself." After that, he swung his sleeves and strode away. "Who is this?" A female guest asked curiously about him. "Your Excellency Wei, I heard that he is the ex-husband of our shopkeeper. He abandoned our shopkeeper and married a woman from a noble family. I don't know what he is doing now." A shop assistant curled his lips and said, "These days, Wei Dahai sent people to deliver things to them from time to time, and he would come to please them. Everyone in the shop knew that. He's a heartless woman. Why did he come here again?" An old maid followed her master here and asked curiously, "He saw that our shopkeeper is running this shop and thinks that our shopkeeper has a good net worth. What kind of person is he? Such a heartless man has the face to come out. Now he covets his ex-wife's money. He's really a jerk. He's really not a jerk. Whoever marries this kind of person is really out of luck." Butterfly Clothing Shop bought clothes for women, and most of the customers were women. When they heard that Wei Dahai was such a person, many people couldn't help but scold him. If a woman got married and met such a greedy, heartless, and greedy man, she might as well not marry him. Therefore, they sympathized with Nanny Dong more and more. The current situation seemed to be very bad for Nanny Dong. If they really fell out, Wei Dahai didn't seem to be a good person, and he might play dirty tricks behind her back. How could a woman have the ability to support the shop? Butterfly Clothing Shop might be in trouble next. While everyone was talking, Nanny Dong closed the door and returned to the room. Mother Dong Xiao came out from behind the screen, her face covered with tears. Nanny Dong felt a lump in her throat. She had brought up Dong Xiao with hardships. Others couldn't understand the pain a person had suffered, but she didn't feel it was bitter. As long as her daughter could understand her, it was okay. "Mother, I was wrong." Dong Xiao walked to Nanny Dong, knelt down on both knees, held Nanny Dong's leg and cried loudly. Originally, she thought that her biological father was sincerely repentant, but it turned out that he had deceived her. She didn't want to recognize such a father. "Mother, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have thought that he was a good person and would treat us sincerely. Mother, I was wrong." Dong Xiao choked with sobs and was full of regret. Nanny Dong's tears flowed down uncontrollably. She reached out and patted Dong Xiao on the back. She choked with sobs and said, "It's the best that you can understand me. Today, I let you know that he has never been a good person. I'm afraid that you will be deceived by him." Dong Xiao wiped away her tears and said bitterly, "Mother, don't worry. I won't be deceived by him again and I won't believe his words again." Nanny Dong pulled her up from the ground, reached out to wipe away the tears on her face, and said with a tearful smile, "Xiao, you are my only daughter and my only support. As long as you can understand me, no matter how hard it is, I will go on." Dong Xiao cried so hard that she couldn't say a word. She just held Nanny Dong and cried. "What about this shop? Princess Chen, what does Princess Chen mean?" After crying for a while, Dong Xiao finally remembered why she came here, so she asked in a low voice. This shop originally belonged to Princess Chen. What did she mean by making such a scene now? Princess Chen originally wanted me to sell the shop to her above board. On the one hand, she wanted to support me above board. On the other hand, she wanted Wei Dahai to give up. Without this shop, Wei Dahai would never marry me. Now she came here with great fanfare just for this shop. Nanny Dong also wiped away her tears and told Dong Xiao, in a low voice, "You don't have to worry about this. Do what you should do. If Wei Dahai comes to pester you again, you can say that you can't make the decision. Say that Princess Chen is powerful and this shop must be sold to Princess Chen. In that way, he won't pester you again." Dong Xiao nodded repeatedly and her eyes lit up. She didn't want to acknowledge such a biological father, and she didn't want Wei Dahai to mess up her mother's business. This would benefit her mother a lot. On the one hand, she would have a strong owner, and on the other hand, Wei Dahai would give up. Although she had hoped to be an official in the Wei mansion, the most important thing was her mother. She had been lonely with Nanny Dong for half of her life, so how could she not understand Nanny Dong's pain? Not necessarily. Just be careful. Anyway, you don't know anything. I'm relieved that you're fine. Princess Chen will take care of the shop. You don't have to worry about me, Nanny Dong said. Princess Chen meant that Wei Dahai would not give up. Although Nanny Dong didn't believe it, she was a little skeptical. Princess Chen had always been smart and had never made a mistake. But how could Wei Dahai dare to offend Princess Chen? The sound of the mother and daughter crying in each other's arms could be heard outside. Many female customers secretly sighed and felt that the shopkeeper was really a pitiful person. Her ex-husband was such a scumbag, and he was also an official. The shop might really not be safe. After Xiao Wanru returned to the mansion, she entered the palace from the side door to see the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager specially granted her the right to enter the palace to visit her at any time. On the way, when she passed by a courtyard, she saw Di Zhaoyi again. She looked at her from a distance with a very kind smile on her face. Xiao Wanru also smiled at her and then continued to move forward. After the two of them passed each other, they still moved forward separately, as if it was just a simple turning back and passing each other. In the Empress Dowager's palace of benevolent peace, Nanny Wei was chatting and laughing with the Empress Dowager. There was no one else in the hall, so the master and the servant were quite at ease, as if they were an extremely simple pair of master and servant. Hearing that Xiao Wanru had come, the Empress Dowager hurriedly asked someone to summon her. After a while, Xiao Wanru came in and bowed to the Empress Dowager first. The Empress Dowager waved her hand with a smile and motioned for her to sit down. She looked Xiao Wanru up and down and felt that although she looked a little haggard, she was not very serious. Have you recovered? How is your health? Thank you for your concern, Imperial Grandmother. I'm fine now. I just caught a cold occasionally before. It's not a serious illness. Thank you for your concern, Imperial Grandmother. Xiao Wanru said with a soft smile. Chen is not around. You are the only master in your mansion, and you are still young. Be careful. The Empress Dowager warned. She was indeed a little worried. Xiao Wanru was really a little young. She originally wanted to wait a few more years, but Chu Luchen wanted to marry her, so the Empress Dowager could only give in to him. She even deliberately mentioned his marriage before his two brothers because of his health. Imperial Grandmother, I will be careful. Xiao Wanru nodded softly. Your Highness, the Empress Dowager has been thinking about your health these days. If it weren't for me, she would definitely come to see you. Nanny Wei answered with a smile. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.